The hero totally nabbed the beast once it fell right into his trap. He said it's been forever since he's actually eaten any normal meat. The guy took one look at her and started screaming his head off. He spots a massive boar that's already busy devouring his precious meat. Our hero knew the demon realm was gonna be a total nightmare, and now he's honestly wondering why he's even stuck in this literal hell. This whole thing kicked off just a few days ago. The guy tells him he's way too late because the land was already sold 4 days ago. He was totally losing it, even though he'd been eyeing this land for a really long time. He spent 3 whole years living on scraps just to save those 5 coins, but now they're completely worthless. The guy complained the coins were super gross, so the hero asked if there was any other good dirt nearby. They told him that land was super hard to find, and the guy only had 5 gold coins in his pocket. The guy told her he didn't care where he stayed and would even build his own shack if she didn't have a house, since he was down to handle any struggle as long as they helped. The guy said he had just the thing for exactly 5 coins, and the land was actually massive. This forest was tucked away between massive mountains and cliffs right by the sea, miles away from the nearest city. The guy tells him that nobody has ever stepped foot in there, making it a total mystery zone with absolutely zero info to go on. Our guy figured he had nothing left to lose, so he just went ahead and bought her. The guy was totally talentless, got kicked out of his house the second he turned 15, and jumped into adventuring just because he thought it looked awesome. But things were about to get way more messed up than they thought. Most of these adventurers didn't have a single clue how to actually fight. They were far from free and worked just to stay alive, but he totally looked up to the legendary adventurers who occasionally rolled through. Just like the others, he worked random side jobs just so he could blow all his cash on having a good time. He even thought about ditching his job to become an adventurer, but he's got zero talent for trading or crafting. Our hero knew it was a total waste of time and would just mess everything up even more. Then it hit him he might be a trash adventurer, but he's still a farmer's son, and with his own land, he could actually make something happen. He locked in for 3 whole years and finally managed to save up 5 coins. He finally scored his own land, and a brand new life was waiting right there for him. These knights from the Kingdom of Estonia stopped him to ask where he was headed, warning him that there was nothing but their training base up ahead, but he just casually told them he actually bought the land. The soldiers warned him that this place was a total demon-filled zone that nobody's ever explored. Then they demanded to see his adventurer card. Every adventurer carries a card showing their name and rank that looks way cooler as they level up, but he was stuck at the absolute bottom. They told him to practice surviving in the woods before heading to the Devil's Nest, but he thought they were just making fun of him. His land was probably hidden deep in those woods, and honestly, the demon realm wasn't crawling with monsters like he expected. It was actually super peaceful. Suddenly, 2 monsters started throwing down right in front of him. A wild bear and a Vespa hornet were going at it, and he knew there was no way he could take them down yet. He ducked into the bushes and realized that everything was already over. Seeing those massive monsters had him totally freaked out, but he caught a huge break right when he needed to farm some loot. Our hero just scored a creepy bug eye, a wing, and a glowing magic stone. Every single monster has a unique stone inside them that they use to control their magic and pull off crazy abilities. Humans are different because they pull magic straight from nature instead of having stones in their bodies, or at least that's what he was taught at the Adventurers Guild. This magic stone is supposed to be super toxic, but the poison stinger that's usually inside its belly is just gone. Just like our hero thought, that sting was buried right inside the bear. The guy says he's gonna skin and dry the meat, but our hero is totally used to it since he worked in a butcher shop before. He scored some fur and meat, plus a poisonous hornet stinger and a magic stone from the bear. He figured things were off to a pretty solid start. After 3 more days of pushing deep into the thick forest, our hero finally made it. Massive mountains and thick forests stretched out as far as his eyes could see. That river was the border, and everything on the other side was like a whole different world. He told them everything was chill, and that it was finally time to kick off their brand new life. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him when he spotted a local slime. His head is spinning because his magic is totally drained, and one more attack will knock him out cold. To take down the slime, he has to smash the core right in the middle, so he prepares to hit it with long-range attacks and heavy punches. He totally missed his swing, and his hoe just melted into nothing, making him lose his cool. He totally crushed the slime, and even though it splashed goo all over his face, he was just hyped that he actually won. Losing that bear skin was a total waste of cash, but at least he walked away with a material magic slime stone. He realized he couldn't waste time being upset and had to get his camp ready before it got way too dark. He figured he could whip up a quick tent with just some branches and leaves, but this forest was loaded with weird plants he'd never seen in his life. He sliced into a palm leaf and gross slime started oozing out, and it turns out none of the other plants were good for building a tent either. Right in the middle of the wild jungle, our guy stumbles upon a massive field of flowers. He looked ahead and saw the massive skeletons of actual monsters. He really wasn't feeling this spot, but he'd worry about that later since he had to get his camp set up first. Night had already fallen, and while our hero said things were mostly chill for now, he was seriously starving. He was seriously glad he decided to bring that wild bear meat along. That forest is crawling with some seriously weird creatures, so he's gotta start digging for answers tomorrow to figure out his next move. He spotted those massive, sparkling eyes and got totally freaked out. It was a straight-up green tiger. She warned him that if he faced that guy without a weapon, he better be ready to lose his life. This dude chucked some poisoned meat right at the tiger. But that plan was a total bust because the tiger only wanted fresh meat. The beast suddenly bolted and started charging right at him. The tiger was inches away from grabbing him, but he managed to dodge just in time. This guy was totally spot on. He was totally freaking out and legit thought it was game over for him. It's only day one and things are already a total mess, so if this keeps up, he's basically got zero chance for the future. The noise was getting way louder, and that monster was definitely closing in. Our hero realized he was totally outmatched and had to bail before things got way too dangerous. The kid realized he had to head back to the village and start everything from scratch. But the thing is, he didn't even have that choice. Everyone kept telling him he was useless and just slowed them down, making his life as an adventurer super boring. He knew running away wouldn't change a thing, so he realized he had no choice but to stand his ground. He's got nothing left but his life, and that empty wasteland is all he's got. That tiger was closing in fast, and if his plan failed, he was totally dead meat. He made it through okay, but then it hit him. That flower garden was actually a total trap. Those creepy white flowers were actually super powerful and knocked everyone out cold. He dropped down and covered his nose, knowing he had to be super careful not to breathe any of that stuff in. Our hero pulls off the win and walks away with all the green tiger loot and a shiny magic stone. He was literally starving and hadn't even grabbed a bite to eat before everything suddenly went down. This dude says that green tiger meat tastes absolutely gross. He flopped down and said he was seriously craving something delicious. Being in this new spot was a total struggle, but he's gonna do whatever it takes to hang on for just a bit longer. Let's be real, that place is basically a living hell for him. He had no clue where he was or what was even going on. The place was totally packed, and he had absolutely no clue where he'd actually ended up. This dude was convinced he was just stuck in some super weird dream. Our hero's been having this same dream since he was a little kid and always wondered what it meant, but then he spotted a slime that had already swiped his bag. He grabbed an axe and chopped straight through his heart. He was stoked his bag didn't have a scratch on it and realized he's definitely getting way stronger. He decided it was time to keep pushing deeper into that living hell. It was his own turf after all, so he really needed to know where everything was. He spots a girl who looks totally dead, but her upper body is actually a snake, making her a super powerful lamia. Hidden right inside her mouth was a deadly, poisoned Vespa hornet stinger. Everything finally clicked for him. It was all because of those poison needles that guy threw at the green tiger yesterday. He got seriously lucky, but now he just had to get that magic stone out of the girl. Today, he's finally making his move and heading deep into the suamangras. Our hero spots some mushrooms and wonders if he can eat them, but in this living hell, even a harmless-looking plant is a total death trap. He snatched up a green rat, named it a forest rat, and then just chucked it straight into the mushrooms. The rat didn't even twitch anymore. Our hero realized these were paralyzing spores, another deadly trap from nature, and he knew right then that living here was totally impossible. Since he had zero fighting skills, he realized setting traps was his only shot at taking down those monsters. He made up his mind right then he was making it out of this alive. Our guy finally finished digging the pit and tossed the suman flower and the mushroom right inside. He refused to budge because he was totally starving, just hoping he'd finally catch something massive tomorrow. He snapped awake and said it was finally time to go see what was happening over there. He spotted this massive boar, but even though it was fast asleep, he still didn't stand a chance against it. Our hero knew he had to end this guy right now, but it actually took him a full day just to slice him apart. He spotted a blue snake chilling inside the monster's stomach and realized this whole ecosystem was seriously weird. It was already pitch black out, and he walked away with the boar's fangs, fur, meat, and a magic stone. He realized it's been way too long since he had real meat, and man, it tasted amazing. His axe and knife were totally blunt and couldn't do a single thing anymore. Those bones looked crazy strong, so he figured he'd give them a shot. The thing had some serious weight, but it was actually pretty easy to use. Right now he's crafting a brand new axe. Once the resin hardens, it's gonna be as tough as a rock. He's pouring the liquid into a mold he built. He actually crafted an axe out of tree resin and a sword from a boar's bone. The sun is already up, but he's so locked into making tools that he doesn't even feel tired. Our hero sets up another trap and finishes it way faster than he did yesterday. He realized he was definitely getting stronger, and he figured it was all thanks to that meat he'd been eating. It's honestly awesome to see him like this, because he used to be totally stuck no matter how hard he tried to get stronger. Suddenly, he spots a mysterious cave right in front of him. He spotted a lit torch on the wall and realized someone actually lived there, so he quickly shouted out an apology. The place looked totally empty, but he could tell someone definitely used to live there. He finds a diary that's basically a survival guide, filled with secrets about monsters, what's safe to eat, and healing herbs. Knowing this was the only way to actually stay alive in a place like that. He was totally shocked to find ruins in the demon world, but he had zero info on what they actually were. Pure strength and basic magic won't do a thing. A massive monster pops up every 3 months like clockwork. You've got to master space-time magic if you want a chance. Unknown checked out the area, but he was totally bummed that he couldn't crack the mystery of those lands. The warehouse was packed with weird metals nobody had ever seen. It looked like the stranger forged all the blades and gear himself, and our hero figured this guy had to be a total pro-adventurer. He was dying to know more about this mysterious stranger, but some secrets are meant to stay hidden, and honestly, he was just lucky to find such a perfect hiding spot. The inside of the cave looked totally untouched, so it might actually be a safe place to hide out. Our main guy finally made the call to pack up and move right in. He decided to build a house right over the cave to turn it into an epic base, and he could finally see his dream of having a home coming to life. First, he's got to clear out that total mess of a room, fix what's broken, and build the rest from whatever he can find. He said he really thought that what he did would be enough to finish the job. He built himself a brand new home, but let's be real, nobody was exactly throwing him a welcome party. But honestly, he's totally fine being on his own if it means avoiding all that annoying drama. The knight was just waiting for one tiny opening to take him out, and honestly, the only thing missing from this crazy scene was a wild bear. They were totally stuck, and someone warned that if they didn't take him out right now, he'd reveal himself to the public, so they were backed into a corner and had to act. This mysterious guy asks if they're having any trouble and if they want him to step in and help. They asked who he was, but after hearing that the wild bear is a total weakling in the devil's kingdom, he demanded a chance to fight him. He had to dodge those massive swings, stay away from that hard skull, and aim right for the weak spots. Our hero greets them and asks if they're the ones from the training camp. He says he lives right around the corner and asks if they have any wheat or veggie seeds, offering to trade some monster meat or magic stones for them. The soldier says he's got some back at the camp, so the hero tells him they should head over right now. He's also hoping to trade his materials for some coal and paper if he can. He was totally stoked because he actually managed to grab every single thing he wanted. The dude was actually starting to feel at home in the demon realm, but he still had tons of places to explore and map out, even though the soldiers nearby were looking at him like he was. Our guy realized he'd leveled up big time, but honestly, that's what happens when you're constantly surrounded by absolute monsters. The kid had been hunting so hard he hadn't showered in ages, and he figured the soldier was cringing because he probably smelled like total trash. Since some vegetable seeds finally showed up, the hero figured it was the perfect moment to start his farming journey. He spotted this massive turtle and started chasing it away before it could totally wreck his crops. She blasted him with a literal swamp, and the guy was totally fuming since he just finished getting clean. The turtle's leg got snagged in the swamp, and it totally wiped out, so now it's basically just a piece of meat to him. The meat was fire, but that soup was on a whole different level. The stranger's notes actually talked about this specific turtle. It's called a smoked turtle, and you can. This thing is basically the biggest weakling in the entire demon realm. Our hero decided it was time to keep moving, and today he's on a mission to finally reach the sea. The kid dried so much meat that he totally wiped out his salt supply. He figured he'd just hit up the soldiers to see if they had any extra, while mapping the area, the heroes. He figured the demon kingdom ended right there, so while he was busy getting salt from the ocean, he spotted something totally weird on the beach. He spots a girl lying on the ground and quickly checks to see if she's still breathing. The hero just realized she's actually a demon, which is wild because he thought humans wiped them out in a war forever ago. This dude was already at his limit and definitely didn't want any more drama. She was barely breathing, and he had absolutely zero gear to save her. He realized this was his turf, and he wasn't about to take the blame for those demons crossing the border. He decided to play it cool and act like he saw nothing, since he was only there to make some salt anyway. This guy is being hunted by a dinosaur, and he has absolutely no clue what he's even doing. He tested the leaves on a wood rat, and even though they tasted totally gross, they were exactly what he needed to get his strength back. You'd think he was totally tapped out, but he was running out of time and seriously needed to find some food. Our hero offered her some food, and she was totally down for it. He had no clue where she came from, but since she was trespassing in a demon kingdom on his land, he told her to get lost the second she finished that crab. She started babbling in a language he didn't know and called him Mako, and even though he told her that wasn't his name, she just kept doing it until he finally gave. He tells her she can totally call him that and asks for her name, and she says it's Till. She looked over at him and he asked if she was full, apologizing because he was totally out of food. He asked her how she even got there and decided to use pictures to talk to her. Our hero was totally lost, but it looked like the demons were fighting, and the girl took that chance to run for it. He asked if she was curious about his job, then told her he actually boils seawater to make salt. This girl just unleashed a crazy amount of magic. The hero told her to hold up, asking if she was really the one who'd be watching the fire. This guy could tell that things were starting to get really weird. Since she's gonna be stuck in the demon world for a while, she might as well have him teach her magic instead of paying rent. He ended up walking away with a massive pile of salt. He figured they'd be way faster as a team, so he woke the girl up and told her she had to follow him. The hero told her she could crash at his place until they finished building a boat to get her back home. Looking at her was like seeing a total flashback of how he felt on his very first day there. She was totally blown away the second she saw his house. He was honestly starting to hate the fact that this was his own house. He showed her his bread oven and the forest rat he uses for experiments, then told her straight up not to touch anything. She ended up crashing right at his spot, and he just figured she was totally wiped out. He brought her along thinking she'd be a big help, but this could seriously blow up in his face. Basically, if anyone finds out a demon is hiding there, he's totally getting arrested. He still thinks she should just leave, since he actually loves being all alone in the demon world. Our hero couldn't even wait for morning, so he wakes her up right then to explain the whole crazy situation. He wondered what he'd say to her next time, and that's how the crazy life of a human and a demon officially kicked off in the demon world. He straight up told her she was way too weak and asked how she'd ever survive in the devil's kingdom. He told her he couldn't be there to save her every single time, and it looked like they were totally out of options. Our main guy figured they should kick things off with some serious training. He told her to start by catching every single forest rat she could find. Next up, it was time for some shooting practice. He told her to stop firing those huge blasts and focus on making them smaller so they'd pack a way bigger punch. He told her to fix her aim and asked why she was even closing her eyes. One tiny mistake and she was toast, so he told her to just pull the trigger. She took her shot and hit the target dead center. He told her to wipe that smug look off her face because it was seriously ticking him off and he didn't even know why. She was totally wiped out after taking down just one green monkey before sunset, so now he's stuck playing babysitter. The kid straight up asked her to teach him how to use magic. Something crazy flowed out of Till's hands and then zipped right back, looking just like magic. He started getting a weird vibe that something was just a little off. The kid was totally shocked by his massive mana pool and realized he'd be crazy not to start using it. He kept wondering where all this mana was coming from until he realized it was probably just because he started living there. This dude thought he could just use magic in the middle of the fight, but he didn't even stop to think it through. The hero said he was gonna give some basic household magic a try. He pulled a quick move, and the girl finally let out a breath. He says magic is all about what you picture in your head, meaning you can basically create anything you can imagine. He went ahead and used the image, but the magic he got was so tiny and weak that it was totally useless in a real fight. He told them they had to take down every single monster they could find. He pulled out the map and showed her exactly where they were headed today. He tells her if she's so scared, she should just fly up with wind magic, but if she can't control her powers, she's gonna have to climb. She turned to face him, but he told her not to scream since this was all just part of the training. A giant moth appeared, and he basically told her she was on her own. Till gets hit with a nasty poison that completely freezes his body. He asked if she was doing okay while clutching a magic stone with a giant moth inside. He decided to slap a magic stone onto his cane that can totally paralyze anyone it hits. That move was a total game changer, and from then on, she started leveling up at an insane speed. She hit them with a sick combo of stun spells and heavy-hitting magic. She spent the next few days totally wrecking monsters with her crazy paralysis combo. Till was totally adapting to the demon world, and while he was hyped that she was moving way faster, he still hadn't mastered quick casting because he took too long to visualize the spells. This guy just stumbled right into a whole pack of demons. They had her totally outnumbered, but she just started whacking them all with her cane. Next thing they knew, they were staring down an enemy that was way too strong for them to handle. Even paralysis couldn't stop this guy either. He knew there was no way that monster was just gonna let them walk away. This guy was literally always one step ahead of everyone else. He asks if that's her magic, but she just shakes her head no. This guy was totally convinced he was using some kind of magic. Right then, a vision suddenly flashed through his mind. He recognized that weird board from his dreams about another world, and it turns out that thing is exactly how he learned all his crazy magic. He thanked her and asked how to use the gear, so she gave him the full breakdown on how it works. He just told her straight up that he didn't understand a single thing. Today, our main guy is back at it, grinding his magic skills once again. He's wondering if he can actually pull off making a blade out of pure magic, a weak knife. He tried using stuff like hellbug horns and monster claws, but absolutely nothing was working. Just like before, he had to pull off something seriously massive. He started wondering why she was making all that noise, especially since demons aren't even supposed to have that move. Our hero says he might have just stumbled onto something totally insane. He stared at the raw meat and nuts on the plate and asked what was up, but the guy just said it wasn't a meal yet and he was gonna cook it right now. Our guy whipped up some fresh bread, and she absolutely loved every bite. He was stoked she liked it since he had a ton of work like making maps, but he knew that sooner or later he'd have to send her back home. He told her to clear out the forest so they could build a boat, letting her sail back home whenever she wanted. He says they're wasting way too much time, and if he just had a normal weapon, he could use it like a magic sword. A crazy idea popped into his head, so he told them he'd be right back. Our hero grabs the stranger's weapon and charges it up with pure wind magic. That was a huge mistake because the ball soaked up way too much magic, making even the weirdest things super dangerous, so he just decided to put them away for now. They chopped down enough wood to build a whole boat, but smoothing out those rough planks was a total nightmare. He figured the wood was just damp, so he was totally stuck until it finally dried out. This dude started practicing by channeling his magic into different parts of his body. The girl walked up to him ready to hunt some monsters, so he warned her to stay safe out there. The sun was already setting, and man, time really disappears when you're locked in like that. The girl baked some bread because let's be real, if you can eat and sleep whenever you want, you're living the absolute dream. He snapped his eyes open and asked what that sound was, just as the air turned ice cold. The monster snatched up the boy and the girl, but the hero was already planning their big escape the moment they hit the bottom floor. He said she basically forced his hand and didn't give him any other choice. Our hero unleashed a massive punch made of solid rock. He blasts wind magic right under his feet to cushion the fall and land like a total pro. Till used his water magic to set a sneaky trap. She ended up swallowing a bunch of water, but he was right there to help her out. The sun was already going down, and they were stuck with zero gear in the middle of a massive, rocky desert. A massive sandstorm kicked up, forcing them to stay put and camp out for the night. The girl was burning up with a crazy fever, and while he figured it was just a cold, he realized there was no medicine around and had no clue what to do. Our hero hoped to dig up some secrets from that stranger's diary. These demons look exactly like old men. The girls have way sharper, more defined faces, and that legendary magic stone, it. He spotted those demons chilling on a trent way up in the northern swamps, right under a shelter made from a wyvern's wing, while our hero told the girl to just hang tight for a second. He pumped magic straight into his legs and started booking it. He had to find that magic stone, and he had to do it fast. The monster lunges at him, but he starts throwing hands and yells that he's in a massive rush. He brought over a magic stone and handed it straight to the girl. That weird black aura felt straight up freezing, till finally pulled through, and the guy was super hyped to see him back on his feet. He told her to quit clinging to him because her horns were rubbing right against his raw wounds. Right then, way out on the edge of the Devil's Kingdom, a girl was wandering through a place she'd never seen before. Our MC was out in the fields getting some work done today. He was thinking about using his magic to set up a whole watering system, but then this girl walks right up to him. She asks what the move is, but he just tells her they gotta wait and see how things play out. The knights charged straight for the slime's core, using their magic as a total distraction to lure it in. They were totally caught off guard by the weird monster, and the knight couldn't believe a simple slime was actually this powerful. He figured the fire magic was just a distraction, but it didn't even matter since they couldn't break through the core. The knights were totally wiped out, and half of them had completely run out of magic. Our main guy introduced himself and told everyone he actually owned the place, so he had to give a quick speech. He asks what they're up to, but they just fire back asking who he even is. The guy introduced his crew as White Lightning and said they were there to hunt the toughest monsters around, telling him not to sweat it because they were gonna wipe out every single beast in that hole. The guy flashes his adventurer card, but our MC doesn't care and tells him to beat it because he's trespassing on private property. The adventurer told him to watch his mouth since his squad was the strongest group in the whole city. He demanded to know why they had to die, but the guy warned him to stop right there before things got way worse. The second those knights spotted the tiny dragon, they turned around and bolted. He spotted the priestess passed out, and that was just one more huge problem for him to deal with. He was just about to go sell all the loot he'd grabbed at the training camp, so he decided to bring the girl along and asked Till to tag along too. He told her she had to hide those horns and cover up all that demon's skin. He tried to pump magic into his legs and blast forward. He agreed and told the man he was just there to trade, but the stranger recognized him instantly and asked about the girl standing next to him. Our guy said Till was a total weirdo but super useful, and now he could finally stock up on way more materials. He handed over the magic stones and loot, saying he just stumbled across the girl while he was on the road. The guy was totally blown away by the sword the MC forged himself, saying a blade made of green tiger bone is super rare. The guy mentioned he tried making a staff from a magic stone, and even though he's no pro, he knew the materials were the real deal. Our guy says he wants to buy sewing tools, woodworking gear, an iron sword, and even some women's clothes. He also mentioned that if he had the chance, he definitely wouldn't say no to that book of space and time spells. The man says he's not sure they even have it, and even if they did, it's way too expensive, so the guy asks if they can just order it from the capital. The merchant demands the cash up front, since most of these books are total fakes, so he figures it's just easier to head over there himself. So our guy decided he'd just go out and find her himself. The man promised to get the clothes and gear ordered, telling the guy to just come back in a week. The next morning, he finally decided it was time to go find those ruins mentioned in the stranger's diary. He and the girl teamed up and headed out on a wild treasure hunt. The mysterious guy didn't actually say where those ruins were, and he didn't even have a full map of the demon world to help him out. The demon kingdom's entrance is to the west, the eastern seas are where the girl sailed from, and the north is totally blocked off by massive mountains. This guy made the call that they had to head south. The second they stepped out of the woods, they were suddenly in a massive desert, and our guy thought he was seeing things because the place was completely empty. A massive sandworm jumps them, but the diary says that even though it's huge, it's actually a total pushover. Not even the magic sword could stop him, and the heroes knew they had to get out of there fast. Mukio until finally shake off that giant sandworm, but Mukio's seriously confused how PJ could call that thing a weakling. He's left wondering who this PJ person even is, so he cracks open the diary to find a way to actually kill it. They head back to the cave, and Mukio starts digging into that diary. A bit later, our hero finally finds it and realizes PJ's weapon isn't like his at all because that guy was actually using magic circles. He spots all these different magic circles in the diary and decides to copy them, so he draws one out and realizes he just needs to pump it full of magic. Our heroes lose it and scream their heads off the second that massive explosion hits. Makio points his power at another magic circle, and boom, the stone splits right in two, leaving the kid totally shocked as he asks if those markings actually cut through space. Makio thinks back to the guy's gear and realizes PJ actually hid magic circles in everything he owns, making them almost impossible to see. He keeps wondering who that guy really was, but he's totally sure the dude was an absolute beast at magic. Our hero wonders why this guy chose to die all by himself, and just as he admits he's totally lost, someone notices his face and asks if he's actually sad, but The next morning they head back to the same spot, and the hero grabs PJ's sword, saying it's perfect for the desert, but first they need to load up on water. The squad reaches the river when a girl spots something, taps Makio's shoulder, and he lets out a shout as he looks right where she's pointing. He's totally shocked to see that girl from yesterday just standing right there in the water. She's staring right at them, and the hero realizes it's that priestess again, so he yells out to ask what she's after. The priestess introduces herself as Jennifer Volkov, says she's officially done with the White Lightning, and asks if she can crash there. Makio shuts her down and says no way, leaving the girl totally shocked while the heroes just go back to their jobs. Jennifer shouts that they'll definitely need a healer if someone gets sick or hurt, and since she's the one managing all their supplies, she's staying put. Our hero shuts her down again since he's already told her everything, but the priestess keeps begging to leave the camp, and just as Mikio wonders why she's so desperate, he lets. He calls her out for being kicked out instead of just leaving, and she gets super flustered, blushing and stuttering while trying to act like it's no big deal. The guy shuts that down, saying this is his land and he's not leaving her there until he gets the full story, while Jennifer just stands there biting her lip. She starts shaking with tears in her eyes, crying that her old team dumped her because they didn't need her anymore, so she begs them to let her stay. Makio tells her he has no clue why she even wants this, and asks why she won't just go back to her homeland. The priest explains she's a homeless orphan, but the hero refuses to let her stay, warning her that this place is a total hell, and she needs to find a way better spot to live. Jennifer shuts that down with a smirk and tells them they're totally wrong. She says this land is actually exactly what she's been looking for, and yeah, the hero is definitely not happy. The priestess keeps claiming she's all alone so no one can betray her, but the hero screams that he's right there, and this is his land. She's not buying his story at all, so she nudges him and asks to see his camp, making Mashio scream even louder while wondering if she's totally deaf. He lays down the rules. If she stays, she has to pay rent and keep her mouth shut about all the weird stuff in the Devil's Kingdom, and she instantly agrees, telling him she's already got the cash. They head back to camp where Mashio warns the new guy to watch out for monsters, but the priestess starts singing and gets jumped immediately, knocking her out while the hero just sighs because he totally called it. Inside the cave, our hero decides he's not letting this girl die or turn into a monster, so he plans to hide her there for a bit before sending her home, but suddenly, someone knocks. Jennifer screams and points right at it, totally losing her mind because she has no clue why a literal demon is standing there. The hero realizes she totally promised not to cause a scene. Even with that crazy ringing noise, the demoness starts telling Makio all about the bread. The priestess is so freaked out. He finishes eating, jumps up, and says he's going to water the fields, leaving the priestess totally confused as she tries to call out to him before asking if his name is actually. Jennifer chases after him, still totally freaked out that she just saw a real demon, and asks if those things are actually dangerous. Mashio has no clue how dangerous this is, and she might be a bit of an airhead, but they actually vibe pretty well. She warns him they're supposed to be enemies, and if the guards catch them, he's totally getting arrested. The hero is totally over it, so he turns back and reminds them they were enemies like 100 years ago, asking if the church really teaches them to hunt down people who haven't done a single thing wrong. The priestess says no way and tries to find a fix, but the guy shows off the magic Till taught him for rent, watering the fields and saying it actually turned out great. He warns Jennifer that she's getting kicked out if she can't pay the rent, but she flexes 10 gold coins and asks if that covers the month, leaving him totally shocked because that's way more money than he expected. She hands him a slip of paper, and Makio is totally shocked to see it's a check, but when he points out it's not actual gold, the priestess just smiles. The hero says there's no way, but Jennifer just smirks because she knew these country folks wouldn't get it. Back in the capital, this is just how things are done. She tells him to trade the check for gold at an exchange office, but Makio reminds her they're nowhere near the capital, and there aren't any offices around. The priestess is totally fuming, but the girl says she gets the vibe and asks if he needs a worker, listing off chores like washing dishes or gathering wood before she suddenly stops herself. She whispers to herself that she'll do whatever it takes, swearing to climb to the very top of this perfect country just so she can finally get her revenge. Our hero is totally baffled by her sudden rage and all this revenge talk, so he just scratches his head and shouts that he totally called it. He throws his arms wide and tells her to get lost because she definitely doesn't belong here. Jennifer is totally confused and asks if he messed up, but the hero finally realizes why she got kicked out of the squad. It's because she just doesn't listen. He tells her she's just mad because things aren't going her way, and honestly, life in the Devil's Kingdom is way more brutal than she thinks. The priestess clicks her tongue and shakes with pure embarrassment before turning around and storming off in a huff. She grabs her gear and heads out of the cave, while Till just keeps munching on his bread and asks if she's actually leaving. He confirms it and tells her that since she's only there for revenge, she doesn't belong here and should just go start over in the capital. The next morning rolls around. Makjo announces they're trekking through the desert again today, which has Till jumping for joy, and the hero definitely didn't forget to bring PJ's sword along. He knows it's super easy to get lost in the desert, so he caught a creature to help them find their way back home. He shows off a reef bird that's hardwired to find its way home, making the girl so hyped she shouts over the loud ringing that Makio predicted everything, while our hero just gives her a smile. He stretches his legs, spins around, and tells everyone they need to move way faster. Till suddenly yells his name, and he stops dead in his tracks, totally caught off guard. He asks what else went down, and the demon girl points down to a girl just lying there in the rocks. Jennifer is totally out cold, and her whole body is covered in some pretty nasty injuries. He checks her leg and sees she's still breathing, but it's totally snapped, so he sighs and decides he has to leave the priestess there for one more night until that crazy ringing noise. They haul the girl to a cave, and Makyo tells the demoness he used magic to patch her up, so he thinks everything is totally fine now. Till's done wasting time searching, so he decides they're hitting the desert just like they planned, and the girl just gives him a quiet nod. They're bolting back to the desert, and he's positive the priestess will just walk away once she realizes what really happened. He spots something weird in the sand, and Till sees it too, calling his name and pointing at a bump that turns out to be an earthworm. This massive beast screams right at the crew, so Makio draws his blade, knowing he's gotta crush this worm before he can explore the desert in peace using PJ's sword. Armed with this weapon, he shreds the monster into a million pieces in a heartbeat. Even he's totally shocked and hyped that he took them out that fast. Till is totally freaked out, but he ignores the ringing in his ears and says the sword is awesome, while the hero realizes this blade is an absolute beast and finally gets why PJ thought these monsters were. He flips through the journal and sees that the other desert monsters are just as weak, and while the rules are cool, he knows there's a major catch. He's staring at a sign that says, "Never touch poisonous plants," but he's totally confused because there isn't a single plant anywhere. Mashio says they need to find some clues, so the crew treks through the desert and ducks behind giant rocks to hide from the storm. Suddenly, they spot a blinding light and something weird in the sky, making the guy ask what it is while Till just repeats his last word. Our hero realizes they're on a floating island held by a massive chain, just like the ruins in PJ's diary, and tells the crew they gotta move way faster. They walk right up to that massive chain together, and the guy is totally freaking out. He touches the massive chain, totally clueless about what it's made of, so Mashio suggests they climb up to the island until is 100% on board. They start the climb, but the boy is already gasping for air, realizing with a shock that this is way harder than he expected. The hero is totally drenched in sweat, realizing that even after all his brutal training in the demon realm, this is still way harder than he expected, and then Till suddenly screams as magic starts swirling like. Mashio looks back and realizes she's trying to use magic to make things easier, but it's totally useless because he already tried that, and the chain just blasted him back. They used magic to stay on, but now the thing is literally sucking it up. Our hero can feel his energy draining away super fast. He's dying to know who actually built this. Our heroes keep pushing higher, leaving the ground way behind as they finally close in on the island. Gasping for air, the guy tells her they're almost there, and even though her ears are ringing like crazy, she repeats him while they both crawl across the ground. They barely scramble up the island before collapsing from exhaustion, but Makio is just hyped they finally made it, while Till admits that was a total nightmare. Our hero looks around and figures that the massive place right in front of them is actually a city. They start scouting the island for houses or furniture, and the guy realizes it doesn't look like ancient ruins. It looks like a total ghost town where everyone just vanished. They peek inside one of the houses, and Makio realizes there aren't any bodies or signs of a fight, proving the whole island is totally empty. He keeps thinking out loud, saying it's like they just vanished into thin air, till looks over at the hero. Suddenly, they spot something weird nearby. He wonders if it's actually a... The writing on the stone says Peter Jefferson is buried right here. The dude totally flips out and screams, "Is this for real?" While Tilly gives him a confused look, and even though Macchio thinks PJ is buried right here, if this is actually his. But that leaves one huge question. Who did that skeleton in the cave actually belong to? The hero just laughs and admits he's totally clueless, but since it's getting dark, they're crashing here for the night while the mystery just keeps getting weirder. They find a house to crash in, but our hero is shaking like crazy because he didn't realize how freezing it gets up this high, and when his shivering wakes the girl up, he actually asks if they can cuddle just to stay warm. She happily tackles him with a hug, shouting over the loud ringing that she's just giving him a squeeze, but he screams back that he didn't mean for this to happen at all. The journey is finally over, so the crew lets the bird in, and after it spins around to find the right way, Macchio shouts that it's all finally finished. There wasn't anything else cool left on the floating island, so they turned around and sprinted all the way back to their cave. Till's arms finally drop from being totally wiped out, and she shouts over the ringing in his ears that she's hitting her limit while he spits out a mouthful of sand. The guy suggests using magic to heat up the bath. They start chowing down on some bread. Our hero flops onto his bed with a massive sigh, and then he suddenly spots something weird. He lets out a huge scream when he sees Jennifer lying on the bed, looking all beat up and covered in dirt. Our hero is totally shocked and asks why she's still there, but when she stands up, Macchio sees her fingers are broken and she's burning up with a fever, so he screams for. A demoness heals Jennifer up, and when the hero asks why she's still sticking around, she just looks away totally embarrassed. She curls up and explains that as soon as she entered the forest, monsters and crazy plants jumped her, making her get lost instantly. Was this the forest's way of testing her? Macchio thinks this nightmare finally knocked her ego down a notch. He asks why a priestess like her isn't using healing magic, but she admits she's totally tapped out of mana from using it so much. The hero lets out a massive sigh and says he's totally exhausted, so he's just gonna head straight to sleep. He tells her to watch the fire, and when a confused Jennifer asks if he means her, he just says it's easy and she's gotta work off all that food she ate. Morning rolls around and our hero finally wakes up, giving a huge stretch and a yawn. He looks over at the priestess and sees her staring straight into the fire without even blinking, and the hero realizes she's been glued to the flames this whole time. Jennifer turns bright red and admits she was totally helpless and stuck when she first arrived, so the guy just sighs and scratches his head before grabbing one of the staffs. He hands her the paralyzing cane and tells her it's all hers, explaining she can use it to freeze the monsters and reach the exit by the stream, but the girl is so shocked that she reaches out with a shaking hand before quickly snapping it back. The priestess drops to her knees and swears she'll pay for the room if the hero just lets her crash there for a while. Our hero is totally caught off guard by this. She keeps begging because she finally sees how weak she really is, and as the priestess bows even lower, she warns her that if she walks away now, nothing is ever going to change. Macchio fires back, asking if she's actually ready to change and what happened to all that talk about getting revenge on her old squad, leaving Jennifer totally silent as she thinks it over. She starts explaining that the only reason she's a priestess is because her parents ditched her. Even the church sisters told her to go live her own life and basically kicked her out, so she tried being an adventurer, but she ended up getting booted from that group too. Jennifer says revenge is just a lame excuse people use, and the truth is she's just scared to admit she's lonely and weak, while the hero just stays quiet and lets her vent. He asks why she's sticking around, and she jumps up to say they both live there, which is the last thing he expected to hear. The priestess just keeps smiling, saying they don't care if anyone needs them because they're just living free in this brutal wasteland. She gives a huge grin and says it's totally awesome, leaving Macchio completely speechless. She bows down again and begs the hero to show her how to live a life full of epic adventures. The guy starts screaming because he has zero clue what adventures she's talking about. He was literally just wandering around his own land. He quickly looks away, chills out, and tells her she can do whatever she wants as long as she leaves him out of it, making her look up in total shock. She's finally smiling now that everything's chill, so Jennifer spins around and begs Till to teach her how to bake bread, and even with that loud ringing in her ears, the demon girl just. Jennifer grabs her hands, and since she's totally confused, she calls for Macchio, but he just thinks the girls are becoming best friends super fast. The priestess is already making herself right at home. She drops a blanket in a small corner and asks if she can crash there since he's letting her stay. The boy speaks up to give her. He's totally panicking because he thought he was going to live here all alone, wondering where he messed up, but then Jennifer pulls out a coin and says it's a small down payment. Mashio checks out the payment and admits he's never seen a coin this old in his entire life. She tells him it belonged to a zombie woman, the only monster she could actually take down, and now that he finally gets it, everything has changed. Jennifer stuck around for some reason he just couldn't figure out, and as the sun went down, the hero started shaving wood with his knife. The priestess asks what's going on, so Makio explains they're making a cane to sell at the training camp. It might look a bit rough, but it totally gets the job. She screams that everything is totally messed up, and our hero is honestly terrified by her sudden outburst. Jennifer looks over the cane and asks if it can paralyze enemies, and after the guy says yeah and wonders why she cares, the priestess points out it's a top-tier debuff weapon and definitely not some cheap junk. The heroes start grinning awkwardly, and Makio scratches his head while tripping over his words to ask if it's really true. The heroes finally head out of the cave, and while Jennifer waves goodbye with a huge smile, the boy and girl just stand there watching in total silence. Till shouts over the crazy ringing to ask if she's staying, and Mashio promises she is, but as they start sprinting away, the demon girl asks why and he admits he actually has no clue. She's super hyped and says it's obvious because Till is finally getting a girlfriend, but Makio stays quiet, feeling like these girls are totally bossing him around as they pull up. This guy brags about selling the hero's staff for a massive profit and starts wondering if he can make even more money. The dude's like, duh, of course I can, and starts digging through his gear, explaining that while he couldn't find the exact spell book the hero wanted, he's got something else instead. The man drops a book with a pentagram on the table and says he's got a solution, so Mashio picks it up, reads the title, A Beginner's Guide, and starts studying the magic book immediately. He realizes it only covers the simplest magic circles, and while it's not a huge find, it's exactly what he needs to finally master the basics. The guy offers to trade his gear for the girl, so our hero just says goodbye and heads out. He spends the day grabbing boat-building tools and some girl's clothes. Then, Mokio figures out that those magic circles on PJ's gear let him control fire, water, earth, and wind, but there's a huge catch. He realizes most of them are totally useless right now, so he scribbles them down to save for later. Once the priest ducks around the corner, she notices the hero is a total bookworm and asks why he isn't out fighting monsters, making Makio turn his head to look at her. He fires back that he's gotta crush them somehow, and now everyone's heading off on their own wild adventures. Jennifer just stares at him in silence before walking away, admitting he's totally right, and as she heads deeper into the cave, she keeps glancing back over her shoulder. Suddenly, the girl rushes back, because she realized she totally forgot to thank him for grabbing those clothes for them. He stays quiet, and without even turning his head, he just says it was a total coincidence. Strange noises echo through the woods as an adventurer girl carrying a massive hammer starts walking up. Till sprints right at the hero, screaming his name and waving like she's totally hyped to see him. She's totally covered in blood while holding a paralyzing staff, and when Makio asks what's going on, she just says it's from a smoked turtle before digging through her pockets to show him a weird stone she found. The kid insists it's definitely not just a rock with that lightning pattern on it, and even though it's clearly man-made, his magic won't work at all, so Mashio starts digging through the diary again. He spots something huge and points out a matching lightning symbol in the ruin notes, asking Till where she found it before she reveals it was actually in the lake. She points at Jennifer, who's totally wiped out on the ground, and says she's the one who taught her how to swim while Makio just watches silently. Makio thinks there are secret ruins at the bottom of the lake, so they head to the spot and our hero starts getting ready for action. He rips his shirt off, warms up his muscles, and says he's good to go. Before jumping in, he lights up his hand with a quick magic spell, then he takes a bunch of tiny fish are swimming around him when a massive one suddenly appears, and Makio instantly blasts it with magic to make sure she gets the kill. He rips a massive wound into the monster with a single hit and dives down, figuring it's too hard to fight there, so he uses magic to whip up a current and sink even deeper. The hero summons a stream, but realizes something's wrong, cursing because the water kicked up so much mud that he can't see a thing. He uses his magic to blast even more water, washing away all the gunk to see if there are any ruins hidden underneath. And just like that, the guy finally steps out. Till asks how it went, and Makio tells him there's absolutely nothing left to see now. He throws on a shirt and explains he was digging for hidden ruins, so he's going to dive back down as soon as the water clears up. Suddenly he spots something, someone is heading straight for them. It's the girl with the hammer, and Jennifer jumps up to shout his name, but he just stays totally quiet at first. He says hi to the new girl and asks what she's doing in the demon realm, but she just apologizes and says she heard rumors about people living here before sprinting right at them, making our hero let out a massive groan. This screaming water monster lunges at the girl. She's so terrified that she drops her weapon. The heroes just stand there and watch her struggle without saying a word. Till shouts over the ringing to see if she needs help, but Makio tells her to wait, figuring it's a guy and that it'll be way easier to save him once he actually starts drowning. All that's left is a shaking hand poking out of the water. Our hero knows it's now or never. He reaches out and grabs the guy by his shirt. Mashio hauls the stranger out, and as she coughs up a bunch of water, he's totally shocked to see it's actually a girl. He drags her onto the shore and tells her she's totally out of her league in the demon realm if she can't even handle a little slime, while she just coughs and begs. She says she heard their canes are top tier and she's here to grab some, while everyone else hangs on her every word. Mashio finally gets the full picture, but since those canes are only sold back at the training camp, this random girl starts desperately begging him to sell them to her because she needs them that badly. The hero just stares at her for a second before agreeing, but he asks for a trade instead since he's already got plenty of cash. She tells him to check her bag for gear, and he starts looking through her stuff to see if they can find anything helpful. He spots a book and starts flipping through it, asking if it's a history book, and the stranger tells him it's got the whole history of these lands inside. She mentions crazy stuff like flying islands and monsters taller than mountains, but she thinks the author is just lying, while Makio keeps studying the book because she's sure it's all actually true. He accepts the deal out loud, trading 10 canes to get his hands on that history book. She stammers, asking if he really said 10, and since she's totally down for that, he grabs the book and promises to have 10 canes ready for her when she gets back. She's totally stressed and begs him to wait because this deal is way too good to pass up, and since she's not sure when she'll be back, Mashio realizes she. He asks if she can keep a secret, warning her that what happens in the demon world stays there, because if she can't keep her mouth shut, the deal is totally off. Mashio shows her the cash. The demon lady gives him a super confused look, and the girl is absolutely freaking out. She's totally shocked and asks if that thing is really a demon, but Till just shrugs it off like it's no big deal, while the hero reminds her that whatever happens in. She goes quiet for a second before stuttering that he's right, so they all head back to the cave, where the guy tells Jennifer to look for loot like magic stones and wands. The girls get to work, but Makio suddenly realizes he totally forgot to ask why she needed all those magic items in the first place. The guy keeps stuttering, explaining that bandits are causing chaos in the West and they need some serious weapons to take them down. Our hero asks about the Civil War again and then says it's the perfect time to make some bank, which makes the girl totally freak out and scream because she can't believe He realizes she doesn't sound like a merchant at all, so she gasps and stutters that she's actually telling the truth. Jennifer walks up to the hero and whispers, asking if she can pull him aside for a quick talk. She keeps whispering about how the gear is way too high quality, saying you'd have to rob a noble's carriage to get stuff like this, so Makio whispers back and asks if she's actually a thief. The priestess shouts right at the girl, saying she might be right because she feels like she's seen her somewhere before. The hero yells that this guy is a traitor who joined the bandits and says he doesn't deal with criminals, leaving the stranger completely stunned. She screams that she's not a thief, leaving the heroes looking totally confused. The guy demands to know where she scored that stuff, and she totally freezes up, struggling to find a way to explain it. Stuttering like crazy, she finally spills that she's a noble from Eastern Canir, and her uncle, the Lord, sent her there to buy a bunch of weapons. Jennifer finally figures out where she knows her from, but Mashio just gives her a blank look and says he's totally lost. The priestess explains that Eastern Canir is right next to the Devil's Kingdom and is basically considered their territory, leaving the hero totally silent as he tries to wrap his head around that. He points right at her and asks if he got this right. A civil war broke out in her land, a noble's daughter is here buying weapons, and he tells her she better just run for it. The noblewoman stutters again, shouting that for everyone in Eastern Canir, running away just isn't an option. Jennifer backs her up, saying Eastern Canir is right next to the elves, so they're totally trapped since the elves think they're just a bunch of barbarians. Makio gets the point, but she asks if her uncle let her go just so she could escape. She immediately shuts that down, bragging that she's the top female warrior in Eastern Keen. He hands over the staffs and lets her go with a warning to keep this place a total secret, so she heads out with all her gear while the crew keeps checking out the lake. The dude says he stumbled onto some massive monster bones that day, but he didn't find anything else. The next day, the girls swing by to see if Makio wants to hit the lake again, but he shuts them down and says he's just gonna stay home and read. That book he swiped from the adventurer was actually a history book, and it revealed that a whole kingdom used to be right here until everyone suddenly started vanishing without a trace. With giant monsters eating the floating islands, people worshipping deer as holy messengers, and non-stop disasters, our hero thinks this cave was actually a secret hideout. Now he's totally obsessed with Eastern Kenir, the place that girl calls home. He finds out from his book that it's a super rich and green land, but it's not. Mashio realizes the adventurers were actually the ones who started the Civil War, and he spots a picture in the Book of Heroes finally winning back their land. He takes a second to think and straight up says he's not feeling it, especially since he can sense a massive storm is about to hit. The heroes head back to that border village, where this guy shuts Makio down and tells him straight up that nobody is making them leave. Our hero says a noble warrior lady visited him yesterday with news of a rebellion nearby, and even though he heard the same rumors from some adventurers, those lands are just way too far away. He says the rebellion is probably over so the hero can relax, but Makio just stares him down in total silence. Once they finish up and sprint back, the hero admits the guy was actually right, and after thinking it over, the demon girl gets a huge idea and calls out his name. Heavy rain starts crashing down all over the demon realm. The squad scrambles back to the cave, slipping all over the wet rocks, while Makio curses out the insane rainstorm. Right by the cave, they see a priestess dragging some mysterious bags, and Jennifer shouts the hero's name while lugging a massive bag of her own. He notices she's already blocked the path with sandbags, and while she says the cave is safe for now, their fields are in big trouble if this rain doesn't stop soon. Makio realizes she's totally right and bolts to check the situation, but a massive wave of water is already drowning all the crops. He sees the water rising and knows they're about to be flooded, so he uses his earth magic to change the flow. He uses his magic to launch the entire field into the sky and jumps off the edge while the rain just won't stop. The guy gets back to the cave, and when the priestess asks what happened, he tells her it's not great. He saved the field, but everything else is underwater so he can't expand the farm, which totally shocks the girls. Makio tells them that for a while, they're gonna have to start trading their supplies for stuff like veggies and wheat. He says it rained nonstop all day, and by the next morning, it was coming down even harder. Till gets back from scouting and says a massive hurricane is hitting, so since he's stuck inside, our hero decides to build a custom trap using PJ's magic circle. He jumps into action and narrates every step, starting with a magic circle on a piece of wood that he leaves unfinished so it doesn't blow up in his face. Our guy pictures a massive beast getting caught in a huge blast and suggests hiding this wood under leaves to rip the monster's legs right off. Suddenly, a massive bang makes him jump out of his skin, and as Makio spins around wondering what the heck is going on, a group of girls rush the entrance while Jennifer screams for him. Suddenly, this massive black mountain looms right behind the trees. The guy is totally losing it, asking where this mountain even came from, while the girls just stare at it with their jaws on the floor. Jennifer calls out his name as someone tries to explain. Lightning slams the ground and wind swirls around this mystery object, ripping trees right out of the dirt as the bolts get even more massive. Mashio says the mountain is getting hit with insane wind and lightning, and the monsters are so freaked out they're running for their lives. He remembers PJ's notebook and asks in total shock if this is really that massive monster that shows up every 3 months. He screams that he's a total disaster and can't believe nobody even noticed him until now. Out of nowhere, a massive dead bear comes flying at the group. They're so shocked they barely jump back in time, and as the guy lets out a groan, even more monster. Over on the other side, Makio spots a crocodile and a snake totally on fire from a lightning strike, and the guy explains that the tornado sucks the monsters up just to zap them with bolts from the sky. Our hero looks around and sees the cave is already starting to fall apart. If they don't move fast, they're gonna get buried alive under all that rock. Then he spots the demons booking. He yells for Till and Jennifer to gear up because they're all heading north. The wind starts swirling like crazy around the beast as he pulls his legs up even higher. The hero tells Till to enchant her legs for max speed, then he tosses Jennifer on his back and tells her to rope herself in while she apologizes, before yelling for everyone to move out. Our heroes bolt as the hurricane closes in, watching the ground crumble and trees get yanked right out of the earth. Monsters keep dropping as the earth literally splits apart, forcing the heroes to hop across the rocks. Makio realizes they're still pushing north, even though the rain just won't quit. Finally, the guy shouts that they've officially made it to the wasteland. He's totally speechless, just staring at the picture in shock as he starts breathing super hard. Lightning keeps blasting the smoking monsters, and Makio is freaking out because it looks like the literal end of the world. The hero realizes this wasteland is a total bust and tells everyone to head back to the forest while they're all gasping for air, but Makio's just focused on finding some cover. The wood snaps under his feet, sending him and the girl on his shoulders plummeting into the darkness. He's totally shocked, but before he can even ask what's happening, they're both dropping like rocks and screaming their heads off. They finally hit the ground, and the dude is straight up groaning in pain. He looks around and realizes he's in some ancient ruins or an old well, but when Mihio tries to stand up, he winces from the sharp pain. He looks down at his ankle and realizes it's totally busted, while Jennifer starts untying herself and warns him to be careful. Mashio slumps against the wall, relieved they're finally out of the storm, when Till looks down and calls his name. He tells her they're still alive, and the demon girl flashes. She heads down too, grabbing a bunch of branches to use for the fire. She stacks them up and says the sky has finally stopped. Then the fire blazes to life as everyone huddles around. He hears a noise behind him and realizes that even way out here, he can still hear the monster's footsteps. The priestess bows, apologizing for slowing them down and saying she thought she was a goner, but the guy's voice cracks as he tells her it's okay because nobody expected her. He fates, now all the girls are shouting his name. Sunlight streams through the hole as water drips down, and when Makio is told to wake up, he realizes it's only the second time he's ever heard those exact words. The hero struggles to open his eyes while Till screams his name, sounding even more furious than before. Mashio asks how long he's been out, then totally panics about his leg until the priestess tells him she already fixed it with a healing spell. Till points straight into the darkness and calls everyone over, making the hero jump up in shock as he grabs a torch and chases the demoness with the priestess. He looks around, wondering if he's in a well or if there's a hidden stream flowing right under him. They find these awesome glowing mushrooms inside the cave, and while he and Till are screaming about how pretty they look, Mashio starts checking them out and warns everyone not to touch them. They stumble onto a hidden underground lake, but it's so dark our hero can't see a thing until Till calls his name and hands him a mysterious item that leaves him totally shocked once. It's the exact same patterned stone, so Makio asks where she found it, and the girl says the skeleton is the one holding it. Deep in the cave, they find a skeleton wearing a cloak, and while the guy wonders if it's just another dead body, Till says they have to check him out to see if he left. The crew finds another book, Makio steps up to check it out, and the priestess takes a guess that it's just a starter guide for total noobs, even though the thing looks. Inside the book, they find the stone and read a warning that says, "Never lose the key to the dungeon," so Mashio takes a good look and asks if this is actually the real key. Till asks what kind of dungeon they're dealing with, but the guy admits he's never actually been inside, while Jennifer reveals she was part of the capital squad heading straight for the deepest floor. Our hero keeps digging through the guide and finds a final warning at the end. If that monster steals the dungeon, it's game over for everyone. Everyone stares at her in total confusion. Mashio asks how you even steal a whole dungeon, and while the priestess tries to figure it out, Till just stays dead silent. The demoness screams that there's no way this is happening, so the hero tells her they need to bolt right now, especially since he can't hear the giant monster's footsteps anymore. Mashio finally hauls himself out of the well and drops a rope for the girls to climb up, relieved to see the sky is clear and that massive monster has totally vanished. Smashed trees are scattered everywhere. Our hero looks at the wreck and just hopes the whole map isn't ruined. He tells the squad it's time to pack it up and head back. Till calls the guy out and says they're starving. Jennifer shyly backs her up, and Makio realizes they haven't eaten since yesterday, but there's one big problem. He's definitely not eating those corpses, so he grabs some fruit for the girls instead, and once Till and Jennifer agree, they all head back to their cave. Mashio says it's a straight-up bloodbath over there. He tells the girls the room is a total mess of rocks and rubble, and just looking at it makes him feel exhausted already. The demoness checks their stash and sees the wheat is still dry, so the priestess suggests they fix the place up and make it livable. Night hits and our hero collapses from being totally wiped out, just glad he finally has a bed, while Tilt flops down next to him and passes out instantly, followed by Jennifer, who apologizes right. Makio curls up in his blanket and thinks about washing up, but he's so exhausted that his eyes just shut and he's out cold. He snaps awake and jumps up, totally confused, until he feels something twitching in his pocket and pulls out a coin that's rattling like crazy. Our hero realizes this is the coin Jennifer snatched off that zombie, and as he points out it's beating like a heart, the thing suddenly thumps and leaps right out of his hands, leaving. That coin just keeps rolling away, so our hero sprints after it, yelling that he can't lose it, but right as he reaches out, the coin suddenly shoots up into the air. The guy keeps lunging for her and shouting her name, growling and swearing in a total fit of rage. He keeps chasing the coin and yelling to see if it's gone too far, but then he panics as it rolls toward the water, and he realizes there's a massive swamp right in his. He lets out a curse and lunges for it, but the coin slips away and splashes into the water as Makio lets out a silent scream. He starts searching through the water, asking if she's just messing with him, but then he finds a coin and sees someone rising right out of the waves. A totally see-through elf just rises straight out of the water. Makio's jaw hits the floor while the elf stays quiet, whispers one word, and then literally walks on water to disappear, leaving the hero screaming in total silence. The next day he spills everything that happened, telling them he saw a see-through elf ghost while the girls just listen in total silence. Till starts cracking up and points right at the hero, asking if that ghost was even real or if Makio was just terrified, all while Jennifer watches the whole thing in total silence. He screams at the demon girl to shut up, but she just keeps cackling and asks how anyone could be scared of a see-through shadow. The priestess asks if he did something shady to her back in the day, but he's like, nah, I don't think so. Jennifer says everything's totally fine as long as they use holy water, and when the hero asks if she even knows how to make it, she reveals she's actually a priestess and starts chanting a spell to bless the water right then and there. She starts turning see-through, and when Jennifer asks if she's done enough, Mashio happily tells her it's perfect because her priestess moves are totally legit, which makes sense since she's the real deal. He laughs and says it's finally time to drop the coin into the holy water, and the girls just watch as he goes for it. They spent the rest of the day totally fixing up the cave, hauling heavy stuff and scrubbing everything until it was spotless. Mashio sees that all their food is totally trashed, and right then, the priestess calls out to him. She shows him the room full of the old owner's stuff, and the hero is stunned to see that PJ's gear doesn't have a single scratch on it. Jennifer thinks it's adamantite, and when the guy asks what that is, she explains it's a metal so crazy strong that even best friends would start a total war over a weapon made of it. Mashio realizes PJ lived here all by himself with 0 friends, but suddenly, someone calls out his real name, Till. She shows him the pentagram is totally wrecked, and just as he gasps, the whole drawing starts to glow. He's staring at it in pure horror because he thought the giant monster destroyed it, but even though it's beat up, it's actually about to turn on. Our hero rushes the girls out because the room isn't safe anymore, and as they let out a huge sigh, the sun sets on a night where something big is definitely about to go down. The coin starts rattling like crazy inside the jar, and Makio freaks out because the holy water didn't work at all as it keeps slamming against the walls. He asks if the elf spirit is calling her and wonders if this is gonna happen every single night, letting out another curse. Makio snatches the can and tells her to chill, but she keeps bashing the cork anyway, and as they reach the swamp, he starts wondering if they should even keep going. He realizes he's wandered way too far and might get lost, but then Mashio steps on some leaves and hears a weird moo coming from right underneath him. The hero looks down in shock, spotting something super weird under his feet, and staring hard at the leaves like he's trying to solve a mystery, with a mix of caution and curiosity. Our hero backs away slowly, wondering if his eyes are totally messing with him. He stops dead in his tracks, listening to every little noise while a weird, creepy feeling starts to sink in. He steps on the leaves again to see if he's just being paranoid, but when he feels something move and rustle under his boot, he nods because he knew he was right all along. Mashio is 100% sure someone's lurking in the bushes, so he drops to one knee to get a closer look and slowly starts brushing the leaves away with his hand. He's totally speechless and just stands there frozen, looking completely shocked and panicked as his mind races about what he's about to see. Hidden in the leaves is an elf with long ears and weird markings on her hands, but she's knocked out cold and looks totally lifeless. The hero stands up and realizes she's the same elf who caught his eye yesterday, and his face instantly goes totally serious as he locks in. Mashio is totally confused because this elf looked like a ghost just a second ago, but now she seems alive, even if she's super weak, making him wonder if she's actually a zombie. This girl is barely clinging to life, stumbling around and shaking as she uses her last bit of strength to desperately beg for help. He looks down at the water bottle in his hand and notices the coin inside has finally stopped moving, and he can tell right away that this is a huge deal. He gently lifts her up to give her some water, keeping a close eye on her to make sure she's doing okay while she takes a sip. The elf grabs the bottle and starts chugging like crazy, with water spilling down her face because she's just that thirsty. She's already back on her feet with her short hair covering her eyes, acting super cautious as she barely manages to whisper a thank you. He notices she's super tall and totally stands out from the crowd, which makes him even more interested in her. She's dying to find out where she actually comes from, but the elf is being super suspicious and won't spill the beans just yet. Water drips off her as she calmly tells them she's from the elf lands past the mountains, her voice low but totally confident. Mashio takes a good look at her and asks if this country is past the snowy mountains, then asks for her name. She calls herself Helgen Tulan, or just Heli, but she talks so slowly it's like she's struggling to even get the words out. Mukio and Heli face off, and he introduces himself as the owner of this land, but seeing how exhausted she is, he tells her she should just come with them. She drops to her knees and hangs her head, explaining that she was totally frozen because it felt like the ground was literally swallowing her whole. She says she was looking for help with her spirit body and totally lucked out by running into the landowner, even cracking a smile despite being completely worn out. He finally realizes he's dealing with spiritual magic instead of a ghost, and all his confusion just starts to vanish. Mashio looks down and asks if she's good to stand, ready to jump in and help the second she says yes. He carefully scoops Heli up to keep her steady, drapes her arm over his shoulder, and they start walking off together. The hero points out a cut on her shoulder, and she looks down in total shock like she didn't even realize she was hurt. They check out the deep, nasty cuts on her shoulder, and seeing how bad it is has our hero really worried. He spots a weird mark that looks like it was made by a knife, and even though he stays quiet, he's definitely hooked on finding out the truth. Machio is totally stunned and can't even hide his shock when he spots those weird marks on the girl's shoulder. Our hero gets the vibe that Heli might be a runaway slave, so he asks her straight up while watching her reaction closely. Heli snaps back that she's no slave, yelling that she escaped the government's control with total fire in her voice. She snaps back, asking if he thinks she's a criminal, while our hero gives her a shady look to see if she's actually a threat. She says no way, explaining she just wanted to stop this pointless war, and you can tell she's being totally for real. The hero decides this is straight-up treason and treats her like a common slave criminal, and he's definitely not changing his mind anytime soon. Hilly loses it and screams she's not a traitor, explaining that she only fled her country because she was being hunted. She drops to her knees, promising she won't be a bother if he just lets her stay on his turf for a little while. He's completely shocked by that request and just freezes, looking dead serious as he starts to really doubt himself. He's wondering if she can actually afford the rent, and he's dead serious about getting a straight answer. Up ahead is a pitch-black cave that looks totally creepy, and the two girls just stand there in dead silence, staring at the exit with super worried looks on their faces. Hallie introduces herself and says she's hyped to meet them, but the girls think she's totally full of herself and aren't sure what to think. Our guy scratches his head as he notices a bunch of outcasts starting to gather, totally confused why this spot is such a magnet for weirdos, while the girls give Helly a serious look. He let out a massive sigh, totally annoyed that this new neighbor was definitely going to bring a ton of drama he just didn't have the energy for. He suddenly realized he had no clue what this weird elf was about to pull or how much crazy drama he'd have to deal with later. Right in front of him sat this totally weird-looking plate. He looked down at his basic meal and said it was enough to keep him fueled, clearly trying to stay positive while things were getting really tough. The girl with the tiny horns drops the bad news that the wheat is all gone and cakes are off the menu, making our hero realize just how much trouble they're really in. Machio realized they were in deep trouble because that giant magic monster had just trashed their camp and let the water wash away almost all their supplies. The girls suggested hitting the training camp to trade gear, while Hilly watched from the side to see if this plan would actually pay off. After finishing his bread, he realized his food and weapons were basically useless, so he knew he had to find a whole new stash of gear if he wanted to survive the next fight. She used her leftover loot to craft a basic staff since it was the easiest option, while also grabbing monster skins and ingredients for some future potions. Machio sat by the fire thinking over the plan and asked the girl if she knew anything about medicine, hoping she could help him brew some healing potions to make things way easier for them. She thought about it for a second and admitted she knew a bit about medicine, but she wasn't a pro and had no clue how to make something that would actually make money. The two heroes teamed up to focus on making elven healing potions because they knew they'd sell like crazy and help them score all the resources they needed. The elf was just staring at a nearby stone when someone suddenly called out, snapping her right back to reality. Machio suggested they whip up more of Helly's healing potions, thinking they'd be the perfect way to start trading with the other villagers. The elf got a sneaky look in her eyes and laughed, showing she was totally down for the plan and ready to go all out to help the squad. Healy was totally down with the deal and said it was easy, agreeing to pay her rent by brewing potions, which was a win-win for everyone. She bolted for the cave exit and pointed the way, heading out to find the ingredients while her friends warned her to stay safe in that super dangerous forest. Everyone was totally paralyzed with shock, but the girls just kept eating their food slowly, while the MC realized everything was going exactly how he planned, knowing that things were about to get way more intense. Our guy looked down at the elf making weird noises, while scorpions crawled all over her, just sighing about how she's always such a massive headache to deal with. Healy was totally speechless as he stared at the hero holding that scorpion, while our MC just stayed chill and asked if they were still alive, desperate for any kind of answer. Since it was dead quiet, the hero stopped waiting for an answer and asked till if she wanted to go hunt for magic stones to build a staff, and he raised his weapon as they both agreed to. Jennifer was on gathering duty, hunting for plants and materials near the cave to stock up on food and potions so the team could actually survive. Helly was already chilling in the cave, and after cooling her head, she started brewing potions from their plants to finally get some control over this crazy situation. Now our hero finally has to get down to business. Syl and our hero head into the woods, keeping their eyes peeled, and he realizes that since that massive monster showed up, all the other scary beasts have basically cleared out. Before long, night fell and the entire forest turned pitch black. They dumped all the rocks, plants, animals, and threads they found that day right onto the cave floor. This was all the raw material they needed to craft the gear and potions that would keep. Jennifer was hyped about the massive haul and started clapping, giving the whole squad the energy boost they needed to keep on fighting. She was totally obsessed with that spider silk and knew it would score them some insane deals, which got the whole crew super hyped. Hallie showed off her healing potions, holding up a jar with a cloth lid tied with string, and asked to keep the herbs so she could study them and use them later. Our hero told the elf straight up that if she can't pay her way, she's getting kicked out, but if she has the cash, she can stay forever, which really made. With that, the hero headed off to training camp, leaving 2 girls behind to guard the house and make sure nobody broke in while he was gone. The girls gave him a huge send-off and told him to hurry back, since they all knew just how massive this mission really was. He started making a mental list of everything he needed, like fresh food and building tools, so he could fix up his place and be ready for whatever comes next. Finally, the trading camp came into view, and it looked like a total fortress with wooden houses, massive watchtowers, and a bridge built to keep anyone from breaking in. Mashio gripped his bag of trade goods, but he suddenly felt the whole vibe turn creepy, like something dangerous was waiting for him just around the corner. He and the girl in the hood stared at the wooden spears poking out of the dirt, knowing those sharp stakes were a massive warning to stay on high alert. Soldiers crowded around to form a human arena as one fighter went up against a guy in light clothes, showing off some seriously insane speed and agility. He lunged straight at the soldier, his light dagger moving way faster than a heavy sword as he sliced right through the air. The adventurer watched the scrap, trying to see if it was just a spar and who was actually fighting, since they were moving so fast he couldn't tell if it was a kid or a... The captain walked right up and gave the hero a warm welcome, super hyped that he was back at the camp and totally ready to team up. The group rushes over to the captain and asks what all that noise was about, because they really need to know what's going down. Standing there in his steel armor with his arms crossed, the captain told them this was just a drill to keep everyone from freaking out after all the recent chaos. He called the MC over to hear the war news, acting super interested in his take on how the battle was going. Mashio was totally weirded out by all the war talk, so he shut it down and asked to trade gear instead, since food was basically gone after the disaster. The captain was totally down for the deal, starting a massive partnership that's going to make both of them way stronger. Inside the building, our hero checks out the loot and finds some awesome spider thread he can trade for food, and the building tools his team is totally missing. This guy gets dead serious and tells the hero he's got some major intel on the demon realm that's gonna be a total game changer for what happens next. The captain's words set off major alarm bells in his head, and he could tell this conversation was getting way too serious. The officer kept pushing, asking if he seriously forgot about the massive civil war going down in eastern Kenya. He suddenly remembered that a noble warrior girl had come to this magic zone looking for a staff. The map shows the kingdom of Astinia and the warrior lands in eastern Kenya, right as the elves jump into a massive civil war between the nobles and the adventurers. Our MC finally asked the big question about why the elves were invading, wanting to know exactly what pushed them to join the fight. He finally found out the real reason for the invasion. The elves want their old land back, and even though it's been ages, they just can't let go of those ancient grudges. Right then, our MC remembers Haley, the girl they found in the bushes who's trying to stop the war between elves and humans. Even though things are getting crazy, she's still just trying to keep the peace. When he pointed out people were already living there, the captain just said the elves were kicked out a long time ago, and since you can't change the past, this brutal fight for. The adventurers actually did way better against the elves than the nobles, making the rich guys lose their status and totally flipping the power balance of the whole region. Mashio was totally blown away, but the captain knew this place was all about fighting, and the strongest person would easily win everyone over. Our hero realized that powerful adventurers are totally running the show now, and they're the ones calling all the shots for the future of the whole region. The captain kept it short, explaining that a shady noble was actually pulling the strings and using the adventurers for his own selfish goals. This noble guy was giving off some seriously dark vibes. He claimed the entire demon world belonged to him. The officer figured he'd found out about the staff's power and would do anything to get his hands on it. The hero and the girl were totally freaked out by the news, and you could tell they were both seriously worried about what was coming next. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a single piece of paper, the only thing proving that this land actually belongs to him. The captain warns him that since the paper is missing the king's signature, it has zero power, and he's totally going to lose this case. Hearing that, our hero was totally shook. Tears started welling up in his eyes as he stood there completely lost, unable to believe what was actually happening. The demon realm is basically a lawless buffer zone between kingdoms, which makes it super useful, but also a total headache, and even the captain thinks adventurers should be the ones running the place. Mashio really needed to know if the captain had his back, but getting a straight answer was super tough because the guy was still totally unsure about him. He bowed his head and explained that the royal army can't step in unless the Eastern army actually betrays the royals, since they're both part of the Estynia kingdom. Sitting right there, he realizes the army is a total mess on the inside, with so much drama that they can't even work as a team. Our hero realizes people are still coming for his land, so he's gotta stay sharp and get ready to defend his turf. Mashio just grinned and said if anyone dares to step on his turf without asking, he's gonna kick them out before they even know what hit them. The captain warned that they'd only make things worse and told them to just talk to the center to get the official land papers so they'd be legally safe. The three of them headed for the exit with Machio's bag back on his shoulders, while the officer walked right beside them, keeping his eyes peeled for any trouble. The guards already slammed the girl with the dagger into the dirt, and now she's just lying there totally helpless with no way to fight back. The captain looked back and offered to take the girl with him to thank her for the help, finally giving her a real shot at a better life. She was totally wiped out, her clothes were shredded, and she was dripping with sweat, so the guards had to grab her by the arms and carry her since she couldn't even stand up anymore. The Eastern Empire's new ruler sent her over, so if our hero takes her in, he can deal with her however he wants. The captain leaned in and whispered that keeping a girl in the camp was a total nightmare that would lead to all kinds of drama. Mashio guessed she might be a secret noble since the ruler sent her, and he got so worried it would cause drama at home that he felt like a total idiot for overthinking it. He was told she wasn't a noble anymore, just a normal girl, and if she stayed in the demon world, her true identity would stay a secret forever. Our hero stared closely at the girl while the guards held her captive, but she was so worn out she couldn't even lift her eyes to look at him. She dug deep to find some strength and slowly looked up, trying to wrap her head around everything happening around her. They didn't recognize each other at first, but they quickly realized she was the same girl who came for the staff, just with a short haircut, and she knew it was him because of her. Till suddenly jumps into the middle of their fight and drops the main character's name, breaking the silence and making everyone freeze as the whole vibe of the room shifts. She told them the demon world was falling apart and they needed every single person to step up and help. She sounded super chill but totally sure of herself. It felt like a huge call for. The short-haired girl stared till down, trying to figure out why she was hiding her real self with a look that was both curious and super suspicious. Before she can even get a word out, the hero suddenly grabs her by the back of the head, taking total control with serious strength and making the tension between them go through the roof. He tossed her onto his back, saying she was coming with them, while Till already had the supply bag ready to go. They kept sprinting to stay hidden and shake off anyone following them, while the captain waved his final goodbye from way off in the distance. They finally spotted the cave, and as they got back, Jennifer and Haley were right there waiting with looks of total relief and pure joy. The elf points and asks who the girl is, since she's still totally wiped out and slumped over his back. Totally exhausted, the girl slumped right into Makio, and he just coolly announced that she was officially under his protection. She pulled her head off Makio's shoulder, trying to focus and figure out exactly where she was. She just stared off into space, trying to wrap her head around everything and figure out what was about to go down. She looked over at Till, but even the elf was totally lost and just watched everything go down in shock. She kept staring until she suddenly shouted her name, making her jump in total shock. The brawl kicks off instantly as the girl slams the elf to the ground, leaving Healy desperately prying a hand off her throat while blocking hits, and while she's just trying to make sense. He jumped right in and shoved them apart, literally palming their faces to stop the brawl and telling them straight up that servants aren't allowed to fight. Both girls hated hearing that, so they dropped their fists and stood there totally confused, trying to figure out what they were even doing. They all yelled at once that they weren't anyone's servants, and it was so loud that our main guy had to cover his ears to block out the noise. The captain's words put him on high alert, making him super nervous and suspicious as he realized things were getting way more intense. I'm gonna pack this story with way more detail to really set the vibe, but I'll keep it simple so the whole thing still makes total sense. The adventurer laid down the law. If you start drama or stop paying rent, you're getting kicked out instantly, so everyone better play nice and keep things chill. While the girls kept fighting and arguing, Makio and Till ignored the drama and started building a brand new house for the whole squad to live in. Bright and early the next day, our guy wakes up and greets everyone in the house, watching them closely to figure out how to fix the team's messy vibes. He spots Sylvia and Healy in line, and they're totally chewing out Jennifer while she's busy cooking over the fire. Both girls shouted at the same time that hotter was way better, leaving Jennifer totally stressed because she had no clue how to make them happy. Our MC just stood there frozen, totally shocked at how fast these two rivals became besties and started agreeing on everything. The whole squad met up in the woods to hunt for food and supplies, so Makio grabbed his gear and got ready to head out. Every girl throws her hand up, totally hyped to start this adventure as a team. A bit later, they run into a massive troll, but Till and Makio's just hang back while Sylvia takes it on solo with her hammer, hitting it so hard the ground literally shatters into pieces. Our main guy realized Sylvia was a total beast, showing off some insane speed and power in the middle of the fight. He whipped around out of nowhere, like he was totally expecting to see something else. Suddenly, the massive turtle snatches Helgen up by her cloak, totally catching her off guard. She didn't even feel herself being lifted, but she starts screaming for help, terrified she's about to become turtle food. She didn't even realize the turtle was way bigger than her, but Till and Makio knew they were in serious trouble. Our hero and Till watched the chaos from the ground, as Makio screamed the girls' names to finally get Till moving. Till lunged at the turtle and shouted a crazy spell that no human could understand, making the beast freeze up like a statue. He chased after her, grabbed the sword, and sliced the turtle's head clean off in one swing as Helly swooped down, and blood sprayed everywhere like a fountain. Sylvia was totally soaked in blood without a single clean spot left on her, and as the head hit the dirt, Healy crashed down in pure pain. Sylvia just stood there completely frozen and covered in blood, while the hero quickly apologized for what happened. He asked Till to take her down to the river to get cleaned up and find some fresh clothes, and Till was totally down for it without a second thought. Hala pointed at her blood-soaked clothes and asked for help cleaning up, so the hero gave her a total pep talk to keep her spirits high. With the girls gone, Makio starts cooking up some turtle soup in a big pot over the fire, but right as he goes for a taste, someone calls out to him. This girl with horns showed him exactly what happened without saying a single word. She rushed over to show them the dead horse lying on its side, still wearing its saddle, with its belly completely ripped open and blood splattered everywhere. He steps closer to get a better look, and sure enough, it's definitely a dead horse. The saddle proved someone was definitely riding it, and Jennifer spotted two more dead bodies lying right there. Makio spotted a bag with a sword and fresh blood, making him realize that invaders had definitely attacked. He grabbed the letter from his bag, but once he read it, he was left completely frozen in shock. Right above their heads hung a massive wasp nest that was way bigger than they were. Our hero realized he'd just stumbled right into a massive wasp nest. Makio took one look at the dead horse and the swarm of wasps and realized the riders were probably ripped to shreds. Hell asked what the move was, and since they couldn't help anyway, they just decided to bounce and go grab some food. The elf was totally caught off guard by that crazy offer. Mashio took a closer look and realized the girl was actually covered in tattoos, with ink all over her shoulders and legs. She reveals those aren't tattoos, but cursed seals that make it almost impossible for her to use any magic. She looked down, feeling totally crushed because her magic was officially gone. Suddenly, a bunch of girls overheard the elf and swarmed them, which totally freaked Jennifer out as they got way too close. They told her it was no big deal as long as the curse didn't mess with her life, and Mashio was actually super stoked that she was brewing potions to sell on his land. Nobody was actually scared of her curse, because one of them was a literal demon and the other barely used magic at all. Sylvia showed off her magic that lets her ignore all pain and get a huge power boost for a bit, and the hero just watched her with a grin. He figured they were just some happy, carefree girls and crushed the letter into a ball. The letter hit the ground, and right there in the corner, it said they were officially being kicked out of the territory. Helly quietly nudged Mashio awake, making sure the others stayed asleep, while her eyes practically glowed with hype because she knew it was finally time to make their move. He cracked one eye open, wondering why he was up so early, but even though he was still half asleep, he could feel the heavy tension in the air. He jumped out of his skin because that elf totally caught him off guard, so the girls rushed over to sit by him and help him chill out while the whole room felt super tense with everyone waiting to see. She found out from till that palm juice is actually used for potion bottles, and she was totally shocked that nobody had told her about it before. Makio rubbed his tired eyes and told them that in this crazy heat, clay pots are the best choice since they keep water ice cold and fresh for way longer. The elf nodded and headed out, totally locked in and ready to try some new ways to make those vessels because she was super hyped to help. Mashio stops her right at the door, totally shocked she'd wake him up this early for something he didn't realize was such a big deal, and he looked super confused and honestly a little annoyed. The elf suddenly remembered there was more, explaining how she and Till saw something super creepy by the western stream that totally freaked out the hero, and she warned the whole squad they needed to act fast because this was getting seriously dangerous. She told them they saw a literal dead guy walking through the trees. It was super creepy and totally impossible to explain. The girls knew right then that something really bad was about to happen. Makio and the crew sprinted into the woods to see if the rumors were true, and they quickly found Till pointing deep into the bushes with a super worried look, just waiting to see how they. This mangled body barely looked human anymore as it slowly crawled across the ground, making these creepy muffled noises that were honestly super disturbing. It moved away from the heroes, giving them a clear look at its body, and they realized half its torso was just gone, making the whole thing way more terrifying. Even if the body wasn't hurting anyone yet, our hero knew he had to torch it to stop the infection from spreading and keep everyone safe. Jennifer leaned in to check out the body and realized something was totally wrong with it. She squinted her eyes, trying to figure out why this monster looked so different from the rest. Old memories. As that body crawled toward her, Jennifer realized she'd already beaten this guy once before, and since he was her only win in this whole place, she finally felt brave enough to take him down. Our hero had no clue who the guy was until Jennifer mentioned that gold coin she paid him up front, and Makrio's jaw literally dropped when the memory finally hit him. Nobody wanted that zombie virus spreading everywhere, so the hero told Till to torch the body. They had to do it to stop a massive outbreak from starting. He didn't even hesitate to make The elf asks about the coin the dead guy was holding, but even our hero has no clue what kind of gold was found on Heli's body, making this whole mystery even weirder. The elf totally snapped and started screaming at him for not giving them a heads up, sounding super intense because she was terrified of what would happen next. People guessed it was an elf adventurer, but the transformation changed their body so much that you can't even find those pointy ears through all the wounds and damage. Or maybe it was a teammate looking for a hidden city, but since he totally vanished, the whole crew is stressed out and imagining the worst. They pulled out a jar of liquid with a coin inside, and as she carefully grabbed it to get a closer look, she knew she had to figure out exactly where this mysterious thing came from. She took a good look at the weird coin and realized it was definitely real, proving this zombie actually made it to Midgard and flipping the whole story upside down. So Midgard is actually a legendary city straight out of the old myths. This huge discovery made their whole investigation a way bigger deal. Basically, this city was the secret key to solving everything. Welcome to the magical kingdom of Yggdrasil Midgard. In this place, literally everyone from little kids to old-timers could use magic, and thanks to some insane artifacts, this city was. They were even trading with the elves to keep their money and culture flowing between both lands. The crew wanted to find out exactly when the city vanished from the records to finally solve the mystery of. Sylvia mentioned she'd actually seen this in a history book before, Turns out, a whole kingdom used to exist right where they were standing. This proved their discovery was a massive deal. Healy snatched Sylvia by the shoulders, dying to know where that book was. He was super hyped and couldn't wait to find more clues. That book was the only thing that could finally explain all. Our hero tells the group he got the book from a girl with short hair and tells them to hang on. He knows this info is gold and wants the whole squad to check it out together. He pulls out a book about a lost country where everyone vanished at once, right before a massive monster swallowed the whole island, and they even had their own strange religion. After our hero finished reading, the elf snatched the book and spotted some mysterious initials and rune notes hidden on the very last page. Our hero found a diary on the skeleton he was holding, which had been rotting in that cave for so long that only bones were left. The hero and the horned girl finally tracked down the island where Peter Jefferson was buried, while Till was way too busy stuffing her face to even join the conversation, and the other girls were listening super closely too. The elf was totally lost. If Peter Jefferson was buried on the island, then who was holding that diary? She watched them talk, her mind racing with bad vibes and serious doubt. Our hero thought so too at first, but then he spotted weird writing on the diary and the magic circle that totally flipped the mystery on its head. He stared at the last page of the diary and the symbols by the magic circle, realizing these unique clues were actually packed with massive secrets. When Helly figured this out, she realized 2 different people were actually writing in that diary. That's why things weren't adding up, and it just made the whole mystery even see. Our guy already knew the deal, so he just grabbed some food, thinking they definitely teamed up, but even together, they couldn't crack the secret of this place and the mystery stayed totally unsolved. If you count the body from the woods, that makes 3 total. Things are getting way more mysterious now. 3 random people all linked to the land's hidden secret. After digging up all the info, Helly realized this was once the kingdom of Yggdrasil, where elven legends say deer are actually messengers sent by the gods. She blurted out with her mouth full that in the demon realm of Till, deer are actually seen as the devil's messengers. This totally different view just proves how much these two. Our MC realized Yggdrasil was actually beefing with the demon kingdom across the sea, which finally explained every weird mystery in history as he sat there thinking about how serious this really was. Helly was stuck with 2 massive questions. Where was Midgard and why did Yggdrasil fall? These mysteries were driving her crazy, but she was totally ready to hunt down the truth. Helly told Muccio straight up that she wasn't leaving until she figured out what this place was hiding. Her crazy determination totally hyped up the rest of the crew. Now the whole team finally felt like their journey actually had a real purpose. Jennifer and Sylvia were totally down for the plan too. One of them mentioned that the book had been in their family for ages. They felt like they were actually born to crack this mystery. Now, our MC wasn't ready for these changes, but he warned everyone that any ruins found are on his land, and he's totally kicking out anyone who tries to steal his treasure. Even though the secret stayed hidden and life went back to normal, everyone knew the truth would drop eventually, so they just lived their daily lives right alongside the mystery. Helly and Till spent forever stacking all these different colored bricks to build a stove that looked just like a guard's helmet, and after all that hard work, they finally finished a solid masterpiece that showed off exactly what they could do together. Jennifer got to work sweeping the floors and weaving baskets, making sure every little detail made their camp feel super cozy and lived in. Sylvia gripped a massive bone, her mind racing with all the wild possibilities and big plans she had for the future. Sylvia told Mashio to start crafting gear from monster drops, and even though it was totally new territory, she was hyped to level up her skills. She'd actually never done this before, but she was totally fired up to try. Her hype was on another level. She was ready to dive in headfirst and risk it all to learn. Mashio gave her the green light since they had tons of supplies, and if she pulled it off, she'd finally have enough cash to cover her rent. Sylvia finally showed off her new creation, a 6 set of armor with bracers and knee pads, and she looked super confident while the MC hyped her up for the win. Ever since then, Sylvia became the land's go-to blacksmith, earning tons of experience and major respect. This totally changed her spot in the group. She was super hyped about how far. She begged the adventurer to show her how to fight. This was her massive new goal. She was ready to level up her strength and finally feel brave. He admitted he wasn't strong enough to be their master, but he offered to hook them up with some hardcore survival training instead, which was actually a massive help. She was totally down and kept begging him to train her. They headed straight into the woods, hyped for whatever was coming next, and just like that, their real adventure finally kicked off. Suddenly, a massive, furious bear jumps out of the woods, ready to tear them apart. The vibe gets super intense and dangerous in a split second. They had to make a move right then or they. Sylvia's darting around and swinging, desperately looking for that one killer opening, but no matter how hard she slams her hammer down, she just can't get a hit to stick. Our hero watched from the sidelines and saw that this girl actually had some crazy potential. He told her to stop rushing in and start looking for openings in the enemy's defense, with his pro experience. Our MC explains that if regular hits don't work, you've got to switch up the strategy, and even though he noticed Sylvia hasn't practiced these moves yet, she still pulled. Sylvia took the tip and asked the hero where he learned to scrap. She really wanted to know how he got so good at fighting. This was the only way she was going to level up her own. He said he started with the basic guild, training like everyone else, but then he leveled up on his own to master all kinds of different skills. Sylvia realized the hero was a total pro, and seeing him so confident made her even more hyped to start training. Our hero was just watching his enemy closely, knowing that if you pay enough attention, you can basically see their next move coming before they even make it. He used bones to show that if you know how they bend, you can dodge anything, and even while you're slicing someone up, you're learning their secrets. It was super useful stuff. As he heads out, the hero tells Sylvia that the best way to find her own unique fighting style is to just watch how her enemies move. She kept repeating the rule over and over, but it still didn't quite click. Her training was only just starting. She'd need way more practice before she finally mastered it. The adventurer showed them exactly how it's done. Just by holding a weird fruit, you can tell if it's actually toxic. It's a simple test to see if things. Jennifer bit into the fruit and her mouth straight up caught fire. That's what happens when you act without thinking. She definitely learned that lesson the hard way. The hero warned her to stop eating everything so they wouldn't get into trouble, always looking out for the squad and making sure they stayed safe since one wrong move could cost them everything. Living in the wild was basically one big training arc, where every day threw a new challenge at them as they leveled up and got stronger together. One day, while they were grabbing lunch in the cave, something totally crazy happened that left everyone confused. The whole mood shifted and got super tense. Everyone was on high alert, just waiting for something to. A scream echoes from the river out west. Healy tracks it down instantly, and knowing it's a bad sign, the whole squad starts gearing up for action. Our guy grabbed Till to scout the area and told the girls to stay put in the cave, splitting the work because they were seriously running out of time. They sprinted toward the river, ready for anything to go down. They didn't slow down for a second as they charged ahead. Everything was about to change in a heartbeat. Down by the river, they spotted two guys in black cloaks with their faces hidden, and one of them had a creepy mark on his hand that looked seriously dangerous, marking the start of a. Machio scanned every single detail of the area until he spotted some people in the distance who weren't moving a muscle, and he immediately pointed out how their creepy, frozen poses looked totally wrong. Till crouched down to check the bodies, and after seeing no one was breathing, she told the group in a low voice that everyone was dead. She stared at one body for a long time, checking out every detail, and as she reached out to it, her mind was racing with questions about what could have happened to these people. Till spotted a weird mark on one of the dead guys, and when Makio looked closer, he realized they all had the same tattoo, proving these dudes were definitely part of the same crew. She figured the wild lands were the main target, so she stood there staring into the distance, trying to wrap her head around how huge the disaster actually was. Our hero thinks an enemy army just invaded, Till totally agrees and says they need to find survivors right now. They both know there's still a tiny bit of hope left. Before long, they stumbled across even more bodies, and seeing all that death totally crushed their hope and proved just how bad things really were. Machio whipped around and warned them they couldn't just leave the bodies there, so Till suggested showing the captain to get some backup since they definitely couldn't handle this mess alone. They started by hitting up Jennifer to see if anyone in the squad knew what was going down. They needed to get the full scoop so they could finally understand the situation. They were basically praying for. The girls were totally frozen, unable to shake off the nightmare they just witnessed. But then, Jennifer spots a tattoo on one of the bodies that looks way too familiar. This one mark could finally reveal. She rubbed her chin and told them the mark belonged to the church's assassins, leaving everyone terrified and suspicious now that they finally knew who was behind it all. Everyone looked totally lost after what Cassie said, having no clue what that name was supposed to mean or how big of a threat they were actually facing. While the group talked about these mystery guys, Machio started thinking way deeper. He was dying to know who was actually pulling the strings behind all the crimes. His brain was totally flooded. She looked him straight in the eyes and spilled every single detail to show him how serious this was, and her words finally hit him hard. Machio was totally overwhelmed because nothing made sense, and his brain was spinning with a million questions he couldn't answer. He asked Machio why the killers were there and what they were actually planning, because that was the big secret to figuring out the whole mystery. Machio whipped around to face her, his eyes twitching in total shock as he realized this mess was way deeper than it looked, and he started to seriously freak out. He looked at his crew and realized way too many people were acting sus, making this whole mission way more dangerous with threats hiding everywhere. He knew they had to let the army handle this because they weren't strong enough to fight it alone, so he made the smart, calculated move to back off. Our hero finally reveals his big plan. He's going to march right into the army camp to find the captain. He tells the girls to stay hidden in the forest for now, that way. The captain was totally shook by the news and started muttering to himself to process it, showing everyone just how bad the situation really was. Makio spilled every single detail about what they found, and the vibe got super heavy as they tried to figure out a way out of this mess. The captain said what he thought, but the kid wasn't having it and started talking back. He stuck to his guns and started throwing out some way better ideas. Before long, the two of them. They locked eyes in a tense standoff, both trying to prove they were right since their next big move depended entirely on this one choice. The guy asks the soldier if they have any time left before the big talk. That one question makes the whole vibe feel super intense. They're totally running out of time to make a move. Makia stared at the commander without even blinking, feeling the massive pressure because he knew this was his one shot to make it. The commander told them they were there to talk about who actually owns the wild lands. This was way different from the usual military stuff they dealt with. Deciding who owned that land was a massive. Our hero was completely blown away and couldn't believe his ears, thinking there had to be some kind of massive mistake because the news was just way too crazy to be true. He promised that in just 3 days, he'd have the paperwork ready to officially give our guy total control over those wild lands. Makio was totally stoked and thanked the commander, knowing this massive boost was the huge step forward he'd been waiting for. The guy flashed a grin and said he was finally becoming a nobleman. This was a massive deal for the kid to hear. His whole life was about to get a serious upgrade. He stared at him, totally blown away and in complete shock. He couldn't wrap his head around how much things had actually changed. It all just felt way too perfect to be real. The knight crossed his arms and agreed, but he warned that they had to keep this a total secret and be super careful. Makio just stared at the commander in total shock, trying to wrap his brain around what he just heard and what it meant for him, because this whole situation was suddenly way too messy and out of. The commander says the noble's private army is hitting the wild lands in just 3 days, which means a massive wave of soldiers is about to crash into the fight and flip everything upside down. He started sweating bullets and kept asking why this was happening because the whole situation was just straight up terrifying and hard to believe. He got totally serious and explained that since this land isn't officially registered, the army won't lift a finger to help even if an invasion starts. Mashio realized it was the perfect moment to strike, but that just freaked him out even more because the danger was finally getting real. The commander was totally locked in on his plan. He was ready to do whatever it took to win. Their mission was to protect the land at any cost. The guy was super annoyed by the surprise and told them they can't just drop big news like that without being way more careful. The hero just gave a wave and told the kid he was really counting on him, making it clear he had total faith in what the guy could do. Makio watched them like a hawk and asked exactly how big their army was, since those numbers would reveal just how much power they were really packing. He took a second to think and then said there were 2,000 people, a number so huge it totally blew his mind. The captain said they were totally outmatched since there were only 5 of them. They were basically nothing compared to that massive army. This made the whole battle way more dangerous. He leaned on his hands and warned that a massive war was coming if they didn't act fast, so they had to make a big move because there was no turning back. Makjo gritted his teeth, thinking hard, until it finally clicked. He didn't care about being some fancy noble, he just had to save the wild lands. All he really cared about was ruling and protecting those massive wild lands, and that dream was so huge that everything else just totally faded away. He yelled out that he finally got it and swore he'd do whatever it takes to finish the job, looking more fired up than ever. Mashio coolly told the group the Eastern genius was coming for them, sounding totally chill, but making sure everyone knew this guy was a massive threat. The girls listened closely and realized the enemy was definitely going to use traps, relying on sneaky ambushes since they were totally outnumbered. One girl totally got the situation and felt super hyped, seeing this as her big chance to show off and get ready for a real fight. Gasping for air, she admits this is her big shot to get payback and show everyone her true power and justice in the next fight. The rest of the crew looked totally lost, and even though they knew things were getting serious, they had no clue what to do next. They teamed up right away to dig holes and set traps, grabbing their tools and working like crazy, because they knew their lives literally depended on it. The boys slammed their shovels into the tough ground, working together with crazy energy to dig deep traps without stopping for even a second. The elf was blown away that they were going back to basics by digging holes, and she couldn't believe these old-school tricks were actually still useful today. Mashio saw her thinking hard and asked if she had any wild ideas to help them hold the line, hoping for something totally unexpected to beef up their defense. She was racking her brain for some crazy new defense that would totally flip the script on this fight. Till stepped up and hyped everyone up by suggesting they use their own unique magic. She was totally sure this special power would be the secret weapon they needed to crush the enemy. Her idea fired everyone. Everyone was thinking the exact same thing. They realized they just didn't have what it takes to use magic like that. It was a total bummer, but they weren't going to. Till threw her hands up and called for Mashio to start his spell, totally counting on him to show off his power and save everyone. Makiasai locked in and flexed his arms, ready to show off his magic with a look that said he was going 100% on this. Out of nowhere, this massive rock bursts out of the dirt, and everyone is just shook by how big it is. The whole squad is just standing there with their jaws on the floor, totally unable. One of the girls shouted that she'd never seen anything like this in her life. She was totally shocked, but also super hyped by what she saw. Seeing that much power in person was just... The girls had never seen anything like this before, but they figured it was just earth magic, making them feel super confident they could handle it. Makjo broke down how the magic works and told everyone it's actually a piece of cake, using his super chill vibe to hype up the team and kill their fear. But one girl called him out and said he was totally wrong because she knew way more than he did. She was super sure of herself and wanted everyone to know it. Her words made the whole vibe get. Everyone's eyes were glued to the magic, and Mashio was starting to feel the heat, struggling to stay cool as his palms began to sweat. The elf asked if he was really making all that magic by himself, admitting she didn't think he was this skilled. Her shock quickly turned into total respect. This gave Mashio a massive boost of confidence. Till explained that magic can actually check if a spell is ready to go, and after she broke down the whole process, everyone finally understood how it all works. The magic actually seemed offended by her words, like it was arguing back and showing everyone just how insane and complicated these powers can get. She explained that she usually just hands out spells and formulas, and all he has to do is figure out if they actually work, since that's the old-school way of teaching magic. Magic said he couldn't do it because everyone told him he had zero talent, which basically proved that all of Makyo's worst fears were real. Till said he could create magic just by imagining it, and she realized his talent was so special it basically broke all the normal rules. The girls laughed and called him a total weirdo, but Makio just rolled with it because he knew being different was actually his biggest flex. The elf admitted he was a total weirdo, but he said it didn't matter as long as he was down to jump into the fight and help them out. She asked if he could build a massive magic maze to trap their enemies, which would totally beef up their defenses. Our hero stopped to think if the plan was worth the grind and started picturing exactly how he'd pull it off. She was all for the idea, saying it'd definitely keep the cave safe, and suddenly the whole team felt like they could actually pull this off. They designed the path to the cave with tons of hills and obstacles to slow the enemy down and give themselves a huge edge. She explained that grabbing the high ground would let them rule the battlefield and spot enemies early, which was the most important part of their whole plan. Makia loved her answer and told her the plan was solid, which totally hyped up the rest of the crew and made them even more determined. The squad realized they had to stop fighting up close to save their energy and stay alive, which was honestly a total pro move. One girl asked if they could use monsters to boost their power, showing the team was ready to try anything just to stay alive. Makjo pointed his finger and promised they could get the monsters ready in a flash, giving everyone hope that their defenses were about to get way stronger. Thiel pointed out that magic circles work like extra armor, opening up a whole new world of crazy battle tactics. She remembered the book had a bunch of magic circles they could actually use, and she was totally hyped to try them out. Machio realized the plan was actually fire and would totally work in a fight, making the whole squad hyped and ready to win. Their teammate says they have to wreck the enemy's supplies to drain their strength and win the long game. Machio had a crazy idea to poison the enemy's food so they'd be too weak to fight back, and honestly, it was a total pro move. The elf realized poison was actually a genius move, so they officially added it to the team's master plan. She showed them how palm sap pots melt instantly in heat, turning them into the perfect surprise weapons to give them a massive edge in battle. Machio let out a wicked laugh, totally hyped because they had so many wild ideas to get ready for. He figured they could actually win if they gave it everything, and that thought gave him a massive boost of hope. He shouted for everyone to gear up for the fight, and they all knew that everything was riding on them now. Our hero stared out at the horizon with a super intense look, like he was trying to spot something hidden that no one else could see. The girls nearby stared into the distance with sharp eyes, sensing that the biggest mission the Wilds had seen in years was finally about to go down. The squad got totally ready for the showdown by beefing up their defenses and checking their gear, while everyone stayed super focused on the plan. Mashio noticed the heavy mood and flashed a smile, telling everyone it was time to fuel up for the big fight, and his chill energy actually helped everyone relax. Everyone was chilling by the campfire, getting ready for the night when the elf suddenly froze and started listening. Her super sharp ears picked up something totally off, a quiet, non-stop rustling sound coming. Deep drums started thumping in the distance, getting louder and louder like a war cry that got the whole army hyped and ready for battle. The squad realized the enemy was right on top of them and started hyping each other up, their hearts pounding as they felt the massive danger closing in. Jennifer was totally skeptical, doubting the enemy could actually squeeze 2,000 troops onto that narrow strip of land or even get them organized enough to make it happen. Mashio told everyone to fall back so they wouldn't get wiped out, since he knew it was way smarter to save their strength for a better chance later on. The whole squad hunkered down on the hill, watching the enemy and figuring out their plan. You could tell everyone was super nervous and focused. They were totally ready for whatever was about to. An hour goes by and they're still stuck on that hill, totally wiped out but refusing to give up. Even as the sun sets and their bodies beg for a break, not a single person. Makjo snapped, asking if the enemy was actually gonna attack or just keep them waiting forever, clearly dying for the big fight to finally start. The elf catches the sound of distant screams and fighting, realizing the battle already kicked off without them even being there. The whole group started buzzing about the news, throwing out ideas on how this would change their entire plan. Mashio was totally locked in, overthinking every detail and planning his next move, while the girls just decided it was time to bake some bread. Nothing crazy actually went down that day, so the squad just headed back to the cave to chill. Even though there wasn't a fight, things still felt super heavy, they all knew. While Mashio munched on his bread, he kept replaying the Eastern Kenya invasion in his head to figure out exactly how everything went down. She revealed there were traitors hiding right inside the castle, which totally wrecked their defense and left everyone feeling super paranoid about who to trust. The elf got super worried that a traitor was hiding among them, so she called it out and everyone turned to her in total shock, wondering if it could really be true. She played it cool and told them it probably wouldn't happen, while the whole squad tried to stay tight so they wouldn't let fear tear them apart. Out of nowhere, Mashio drops a total bombshell that he's becoming a noble after the fight, leaving everyone's jaws on the floor. He's so confident it actually makes them stop and think, marking a massive turning point for the whole squad. The girls told him to chill and not jump the gun, since they knew the real fight was still on the way. Mashio remembered Healy was actually a noble, giving him the boost he needed to go all out and crush his goals with a brand new fire in his soul. He asked if anyone there was already a noble and could give him some pointers. Makio really wanted to learn from them so he wouldn't feel so alone. This one question actually helped the whole. Though the elf and the short-haired girl totally shocked the group by revealing they were actually nobles, and now everyone has to take what they say way more seriously. Mashio was totally stunned and couldn't believe his eyes. It turns out those three girls are actually high-ranking nobles, which completely levels up their squad. Now they've got. Jennifer gripped that bread like her life depended on it, sweat rolling down her face as she tried to act cool while her heart raced from the pressure. Mashio asked what those noble ladies actually did all day. The girls explained how nobles ruled the land, raised their kids, and fought in wars to stay in control, and their stories showed a totally different side to what being a noble was actually like. He closed his eyes and asked what being a noble is actually like, so the girls gave him the full rundown on everything they do all day. He decided to handle things himself since he was sick of talking and just wanted to focus, needing some rest before the big challenges ahead. The squad started taking shifts to watch over each other all night, making sure they were always ready for trouble and stayed safe in the pitch black. Makio wakes up the next morning to find his teammate looking totally freaked out, and she tells him they gotta move fast because things just got way more dangerous. The two of them book it straight to the scene together. The crew found a dead boar caught in a trap, which was a massive warning that the enemy was already nearby and making their move. Trying to stay cool, he told the team it was just a boar caught in a trap, but he could feel the real danger creeping up on them. He looked over and saw a girl standing right there, asking her how she even snuck into their camp, and her being there totally put him on edge. The girl spotted the enemies charging toward them at high speed, making the whole squad scramble to get their defenses ready. Makio locked in and aimed her hand at the stream where the massive army was hiding, her eyes sharpening with focus because she knew they were running out of time. A massive army was actually marching through the trees and looking totally ready for war, so the crew had to move fast before they got overwhelmed. Right in the middle of the group stood a mysterious guy in a mask, just staring off into the distance. This was the big boss of the enemy squad, and he was the living proof of how dangerous they really were. Just him being there sent chills down everyone's spine and proved this attack was a massive deal. These guys were hacking through the thick forest with their axes, looking totally locked in like they were on a mission. Makio caught them in the act and asked what they were plotting, trying to size up the threat while keeping his voice calm but cautious. She explains the enemies are building a bridge to cross the gap and attack them directly, which finally explains all that tree cutting and has the whole team seriously freaked out. The girls warned Mashio that he couldn't fight on an empty stomach, so they made him eat to keep his energy up for the battle. She pulled out some smoked meat and nuts so everyone could fuel up and get their strength back. It was a small move, but it really showed they were a team during this crazy hard moment. Till stuffed her face while asking Makio what the plan was, her eyes sparkling with pure hype and a serious need to get moving. He just looked at them and said he's gonna wait right there. Makio told them they were bringing the monsters into the fight, banking on their insane power to win. He looked dead serious, totally convinced that this crazy weapon would actually work. The girls turned to him and asked if they were seriously gonna use monsters right now, totally freaked out that things would spiral out of control. The squad used a scent to bait the monsters right where they wanted them to get the upper hand. Over on the other side, the enemy leader gave the word, and his army charged forward as a massive fight broke out. The entire army just charged forward at full speed. Suddenly, this gross salty slime started swallowing them whole, and they couldn't move a muscle, making them totally freak out. Right then, the wild animals spotted them. They lunged forward with a crazy attack, and the knights started panicking as they tried to swing back, but the total chaos just made everything way worse for them. Flying monsters started diving from the clouds, making things way more dangerous. Even then, the knights were ordered to never back down and fight until their very last breath. It was finally time for. They were fighting like crazy, giving it everything they had just to survive. Giant beetles and killer plants kept jumping them at every turn, making every single second a massive test of their survival and guts. Their leader shouted that he'd burn them all to a crisp with his magic, and while it totally freaked everyone out, it actually pushed the defenders to come up with a wild new way to survive. The boys saw their commander was a real-deal mage, so they had to regroup and stay close because even though his fire was crazy, they knew they could handle it. They decided to blast the commander to stop his spell right in its tracks. The elf quickly aimed her bow and locked onto the target, knowing that every single arrow she fired was their only hope of being saved. She locked in her target and let that arrow rip. Right when the mage was totally locked into his spell, he made his move, taking a massive risk because it was his only shot. That arrow slams right into the mage, shutting down his spell and leaving everyone stunned as the whole fight completely flips. His crew saw the blood and started panicking for their leader, and soon the whole enemy side was falling apart in total confusion. Mashio calls her a good girl, but she's actually super mad at herself for only wounding the mage instead of finishing him off, and you can totally see the struggle in her eyes. The knights started hunting for where the shots were coming from, knowing they had to find his hiding spot to stay in the fight. The magician ordered his crew to shield him with their own bodies and keep the fight going. The commander tries to pull back, but he's actually just making a move to save his team. Just as the magician tries to bail, a hairy dude shows up and calls him out for running, making it clear that the bad guys are totally falling apart from the inside. The knights hit the ground and spotted a mysterious gang of strangers, making the whole fight feel way more unpredictable. Makio and his crew realized these adventurers were a total wild card that could change everything, but nobody knew what they were actually planning. Makio grilled Sylvia to see if she knew these guys, his voice sounding totally on edge as he waited for her to talk. Sylvia admitted these guys were her dad's enemies, and the look of pure terror on her face as they closed and made it clear things were about to get real. Turns out this gang was the heart of the rebellion, and those cocky grins meant the real war was only just beginning. The rebels met up with the knights, but the knights were totally clueless and admitted they didn't know how to keep going. They looked super stressed because the road was blocked and they couldn't find a safe way through. The rebel leader glared at the knights, looking them up and down starting with their boots, and his terrifying stare basically told them they were about to pay the price. Suddenly, blood starts spraying everywhere right in front of them, leaving everyone totally frozen and confused as the whole vibe turned super dark like a curse just hit the room. They looked closer and realized it wasn't human blood at all, but monster blood that reeked of pure danger, proving the enemy was definitely messing with some dark, evil powers. A guy with a cold, scary voice shouted that anyone trying to cross the bridge was dead meat, and he sounded so serious that you just knew a massive fight was about to go down. The knights stood there shaking, totally lost as weapons and magic were shoved in their faces, and even though they were ready to fight, they were too scared to even move a muscle. The guy with the shield and helmet got dead serious, telling everyone this was no game, and they needed to gear up for the craziest fight yet as he stepped up to lead the charge. Up on the hill, Macchio was keeping a super close eye on everything going down below. He noticed the soldiers were acting way different, getting super jumpy, and even starting to freak out. Macchio saw the monsters and plants just shredding through soldiers like it was nothing, making the whole battlefield a total death trap and completely flipping the script on the war. He promised to carve out a safe path for the army so their big invasion goes exactly as planned. To pull this off, he needed a squad of total pros who weren't afraid to charge in first and clear the path. The soldiers straight up admitted they had zero chance of winning and started running away in a total panic. All that hidden fear finally exploded, and everyone completely lost their nerve. It was pure chaos. Right then, a soldier steps right on a landmine, and the massive blast rocks the whole area. The sound is totally deafening, and the damage is just brutal. This makes everyone freak out even more. The long-haired guy was staring at the explosion in total shock when a bear suddenly popped out and started hunting down the fleeing soldiers, making the whole situation way more insane. The heroes watched as explosions ripped through the area, and even though the enemy was getting crushed, every blast made them feel more and more on edge because the danger wasn't over yet. Macchio was totally blown away by how intense everything got so fast, and now he's stuck dealing with a whole new level of trouble he never saw coming. The girls called out how messed up it was to use soldiers like pawns, because to them, honor and saving lives were the only things that mattered. Macchio knew the enemy had way more numbers and would find them eventually, so he told everyone there was no running away. It was time to gear up for a massive final showdown. The guys huddled up to fix their strategy for this crazy new fight, and after talking it out, they were totally locked in and ready to crush it. Right then, Sylvia screamed at the guys with her voice shaking from pure terror. She was totally freaked out because she knew things were about to get real bad. Her shout made everyone freeze and pay attention. She remembered these were the people who killed her dad, and she was ready to destroy every last one of them. He totally got why she was doing it, but he straight up told her to drop the idea. He realized the guy with the skin on his shoulders was a total beast, and his creepy, powerful energy made it clear he was way too dangerous to ignore. Macchio admitted he'd never seen an aura this insane, and it hit him that their next enemy was on a whole different level. Sylvia was totally crushed that her plan fell through, and the constant delays were driving her crazy with worry. Macchio told everyone to stay focused and stick to the plan, and the girls were totally hyped and ready to jump into action. He stared down the girls with Sylvia backing him up from behind, and even though things were super intense, they were all finally standing together as one. Our hero realized that if Sylvia was in a bad mood, the whole mission would totally fall apart, so he had to keep the squad together no matter what. She whispered his name like she was making a massive choice, her voice sounding totally determined and full of hope. Suddenly, she got this look in her eyes like she had the perfect idea, and that one moment changed their whole plan forever. Till and Jennifer were giving it everything they had, dragging that massive cart of meat as fast as they could. That cart was massive, but they had way too much stuff for it, and all that meat was just stacked in one giant pile. Totally wiped out, the girls loaded every bit of meat they could find onto a cart, knowing this was the secret weapon for their plan, and they had to use it perfectly. They met up with the MC, who told them to head south deep into the woods, even though it was going to be a brutal hike to finish their mission. The girls gripped the cart once more, getting ready for the long road ahead. They were totally exhausted, but they weren't about to quit now. They knew they just had to keep moving, and just like. The first step was building a U-shaped path on the south side to lift the ground. This would lure the animals in and keep them totally under control. This was the secret to the whole plan. Next, they scattered meat all over the dead end to lure in the animals. The smell of food would bring them all running right into a perfect trap. They had to be super careful and a bunch of animals, mostly mammals, started catching the scent of the meat hidden in that dead end. This was the ultimate bait to lure in a massive crowd of beasts. The team started watching closely too. Animals were piled up in this massive, messy heap. There were way too many to count, and they were all totally different species. It was wild seeing everything from tiny critters to huge predators all mixed together. Our guy watched the monsters from the side to size them up, spotting a green tiger, a deadly lamia, a golden bat, and a massive forest giant. He kept his eyes glued to the action, tracking every tiny movement and waiting for the perfect split second to make his move. He checked in with Heli back on the mountain to see what the enemy was up to, needing the latest info to plan his next move perfectly. Heli stood right against the thick black smoke and shouted out the chaos, watching as beat-up soldiers sprinted through the woods, falling into traps and getting caught in huge explosions. Watching with her sharp elf eyes, she knew this wouldn't last long because those preset traps were almost spent, and things were about to get way more intense. Just like the elf said, they finally hit the end of all those traps. The pits were crawling with soldiers, and the hills went totally silent, meaning the enemy was basically just walking in without anyone stopping them. The field looked totally normal, but they figured those soldiers were actually walking around like zombies, which made things way more dangerous as a creepy silence took over. Right then, this guy with long hair stepped up, looking totally badass and ready for action. He threw a massive sword over his shoulder and ordered the archer girl and the tall guy in heavy armor to move out. The soldiers cleared the way, letting the team push even deeper into the forest. Now they could keep the mission moving fast without any more annoying delays. Everyone stayed on high alert, watching for anything moving. The guy told everyone to stay sharp and watch out for the local plants and animals. This forest was packed with traps, and one wrong move would be a total disaster. Everyone knew they had. Right then, Till was charging up her magic and getting ready to unleash her power. She stayed super patient while waiting for the signal, focusing hard on charging her magic because the whole plan depended on her. Jennifer was blown away by Till's massive power boost, but she was getting really nervous since Mashio still hadn't sent a signal. Our guy ducked into the bushes while the bad guys walked right past him without seeing a thing. He stayed totally hidden and just waited for the perfect chance to strike. And man, that wait. Once those guys were finally out of sight, our hero crawled right out of his hiding spot. He was totally locked in and ready to start his part of the plan because it was finally go time. Maquio starts by using his magic to totally block the enemy's only way out. He had to keep them trapped right there so they couldn't even think about escaping. This one move was. Suddenly, a massive pile of dirt crashed down from above and totally blocked their only way back. The enemy was totally cornered with nowhere to run, and this one move was the secret to the whole mission's success. Our hero realized he'd burned through way more mana than he planned, and even though he was totally running on empty, he'd finished his part and pulled off the mission. After those massive explosions, the long-haired guy realized something was way off and totally locked in, keeping his guard up like never before. The MC's magic was the perfect signal, so Jennifer immediately told Till to move out, and their teamwork was totally flawless. The second Till heard the signal, she didn't waste a moment and jumped straight into her part of the plan. She blasted all her built-up energy straight into the group of animals, and the magic finally kicked in. The animals knew something was way off, and they started totally freaking out and trying to run away as soon as they felt those magic waves hitting them. The plan was actually working. They backed the animals into a corner, leaving them with zero room to move. It got so crowded that escaping was basically impossible. Now the whole pack was. The space was shrinking fast, so they all huddled together to stay away from the flames. People were literally climbing over each other just to get away. You could see the pure terror on there. He sprinted straight for the dead end, shouting that he still had a ton of work to do because he knew this fight was far from over. He scrambled to the top of the wall to see exactly what was going down. From way up there, he scoped out the animals and figured out their next move. He was totally locked in and didn't. Jennifer spots him and screams his name, knowing he's the MVP right now, as she shouts with total urgency to back him up. Drenched in sweat from running and using magic, he aimed his hand and focused every bit of energy to pull off the next step of his plan.